I will continue with now development approach. Development approach, or we call it as simply development life cycle. Now take a look. These are the ones. We have, you see, predictive at one end, and we got iterative, incremental, and then agile at the other far end. Understand this way, broadly, life cycles are divided into two types. Predictive, and the other one would be adaptive. And watch, within adaptive, there is a further classification happening.
मेरा वो दे दे, मेरा earphone दे दे.
Please self-mute yourself. I'll have to do for now. I'll do it. Yeah. Okay. So within adaptive, I said there's a further classification happening. Adaptive is further divided into iterative, incremental, and agile. I'll explain all of these life cycles. So view it predictive and agile as the two extremes. You know, rather than a clear line, it's like it's a continuum altogether. Your life cycle could lie anywhere between predictive to agile. That's the right way of looking at it. So starting with predictive, Tahir, I just shared the WhatsApp group link, one message above yours. Just one message above yours. I'm again pasting it. Yeah. Okay. Coming back. So predictive. Predictive also termed as traditional. If you go back certain number of years, so predictive was the only life cycle that existed. The way things work in predictive life cycle is you do a detailed requirement gathering upfront, and then once the detailed requirement is gathered, you would take approval on that, all right? And then you freeze the requirement. Thereafter, you put up a detailed project plan, covering the entire project. And rest of the project is all about implementing this plan. That's the kind of approach you follow in predictive. There are many names. Predictive is also termed as traditional. We call it as traditional also. Why? Because traditionally, that's the life cycle that existed. Another name for predictive, we call it as plan driven. Why do we call it as plan driven? Because your execution is fully guided by a detailed plan that you put up upfront, right at the beginning of the project. This is the kind of approach you adopt. Now, a couple of drawbacks of predictive life cycle. Let's understand drawbacks. Number one, change cannot be accommodated. So these life cycles are not suited for changes. That is, change request. So if tomorrow there is some change needed, then replanning has to be done. This is drawback number one. Number two, in predictive, it's like this. Somebody goes and does the requirement gathering, puts up the requirement document, and then there's a team sitting somewhere building the product based on the document. Never seen the customer, never spoken to the customer. So they build the product based on the requirement document. Please avoid multiple login, Manish. We are struggling. I would request you to please kindly take care of self-muting, so as to ensure that the session is not disturbed. Yeah, coming back. Where was I? I was saying, so the team sitting somewhere and building the product. Now, let's say the team takes 10 months to build the product. Now, at the end of the 10th month, you take your product to the customer, showcase what you built. Now, customer sees, oh my God, what did you build, and false. There is a big mismatch in what the customer wanted and what the team has interpreted and built. Why? Because you didn't speak to the customer. You didn't frequently take the feedback. All right. So these are a couple of drawbacks associated with predictive kind of life cycles. Thus emerged iterative and incremental life cycles. Wherein, now take a look at the difference between these. In iterative and incremental, here we break down the development into number of iterations, instead of building it in one go the way you did in predictive. So what you do in iterative incremental, watch, you break down the project into number of iterations, 2, 3, 4 iterations. All right. And here the approach is what? Again, you're doing some initial requirement gathering upfront, right at the beginning of the project. All right. Now, but the point is here, okay, you put up a plan as well. Even here, you prepare a project plan at the beginning of the project. But the plan you prepare watch in the plan, iteration 1 is planned to a detail level. Iteration 1 is detailed. But the other two iterations, 2 and 3, iteration 2 and 3, these are only high level plan. You do not perform detailed planning for iteration 2 and 3. You don't do that upfront. So the idea is what? We'll complete iteration 1. Now here, at the end of iteration 1, you sit here and now do the detailed planning for iteration 2 with more knowledge, with discovery. Also understand, whatever you build in iteration 1 here, you take it to the stakeholders and get their feedback. Show them, so stakeholders can provide feedback, suggest improvements and all. And these you would incorporate in the next iteration. That's how you are improving the product, right? So what is the advantage of these life cycles? Watch. Number one, change can be accommodated to an extent, okay, which your predictive life cycle was kind of no to changes. But here, changes can be incorporated. Number one, the product is improved, all right? Number three, surprises are less because in iterative, in case the team is in a wrong direction, that's detected by the end of iteration 1. You fix it. You don't discover that at the end of the project, which you do in predictive kind of life cycle. And one more thing, why do we call it as incremental? Because the product is getting built incrementally. That is, at the end of iteration 1, say my product is 40% built, 40% functionality in it already. And by the end of iteration 2, you add on to the functionality. So like the product is 70% built. And by the last iteration, this is where my product would be fully built, 100% built. Hence the name incremental. So another name for adaptive is we call it as change driven. Why change driven? Because these life cycles are open to changes, as I said, unlike predictive, which was not open. So we call that as plan driven, and these are change driven. I just cleaned it up. Now comes the other extreme, Agile. The best way to understand Agile, even in Agile, we got iterations, just like iterative incremental. Difference, what's the difference? Here, iterations are rapid and so many. So go back for a while. Come to iterative and incremental. Here we got iterations, a few large iterations, 2, 3, 4 larger iterations. But in Agile, we go for rapid iterations. When I say rapid, the iterations could be 2 weeks, could be 4 weeks, could be 1 week also. So relatively more rapid iterations you go for. That's one. And hence so many. How many iterations? 10, 12, 15, 20, as many it takes to build the product. All right. That's one thing. Second, change, big time. So I said, even your adaptive life cycles are all open to change. But Agile is all about changes, big time. So there's no concept of freezing requirement, not at all. You start off with whatever initial requirements you have. But note, change is welcome all through the project, big amount of changes. So this was a high level view. I'm going to now compare them very objectively on this slide. Take a look. Let's compare all of these life cycles. So you have these, and we'll compare them under these themes. Take a look. And before I proceed, some question may come to your mind. Please stay with it. I won't take a question until I complete this slide, because what question comes to your mind is going to be eventually answered. So after I explain all the life cycles in about 10-15 minutes, I would then stop and welcome any number of questions you might have. Okay, so pay attention. So coming to requirements, how these life cycles, they vary in terms of requirement. Watch. Predictive, we said the requirement is fixed, cannot change, rigid. That's what I told you, you freeze the requirement. But in all others, you see, requirement is dynamic. Dynamic means change can happen. Although when we further differentiate, we will see that incremental, it is least dynamic. In Agile and iterative is way too dynamic, but nevertheless, it is some dynamic in all of them. Then take a look at activities. See what it says. In predictive, activities are performed once for the entire project. You know what I mean by activities? I'll show you. 1 minute. Look this. By activities, I mean these: feasibility, design, build, test, deploy. These are the activities. You do them once for the entire life cycle, meaning you complete your design, then you jump to build. After you build it, then you go to test. No coming back. Point is, you don't come back and redesign. This is not there. Hence, one of the name that reminds me, predictive has many names. We call it as traditional, plan-driven. I told you another one. You may have heard, sorry, messed up. Waterfall model. If you heard of waterfall model, IT guys use the term waterfall model. That's another name for predictive. Waterfall, see down the hill, it's one way, it won't be reversed. So these activities are performed once for the entire life cycle. Okay, come back. Iterative I'll come to later. Look at what's written for incremental next. Here also the activities are performed once, but there's a difference. The difference is in predictive, they were once for the entire project. But in incremental, it is once for the given increment. That is for each increment, you do it once. I'll show you how will it look like, something like this. You already know in incremental, you break down the development into number of iterations, right? So for iteration one, you see, you do plan, design, build. Once you did for increment one. Repeat for increment two, again plan, design, build. For iteration three, you repeat it. So you repeat these activities for each iteration. Okay, unlike predictive, where you're doing it once for the entire project. Let's come back. But look at iterative and agile in both of them. In both of these, repeat until correct. In both. That is, you don't do it once, meaning, look, you did design, then you go to build. Now, while building, come back and redesign. While you go to test, again, come back and rebuild. You keep repeating these until you build that perfect, what you want. So, unlike your predictive and incremental, here is repeated. Then take a look at delivery. See what's written. Predictive, single delivery. Single delivery to mean no partial releases, only one-time release. In predictive, let's say it's a 10-month project. I would only have something to release here, handover or release here. No intermediate releases. But you take a look at next incremental and agile, what it says. Here we go for frequent deliveries. We don't wait till the end of the project. I'll just clean it up. Look. So in both incremental and agile, it's like this. One iteration is over, the product is partially built. Okay, let's say 40% of the functionality is already in there. You release it for operational use. You can. Then in the next iteration, you add on to more functionality. And then again release with more functionality built in. And then again you release. You keep on. Go for frequent deliveries or releases. But not in predictive, single delivery. Hey, why iterative? This could be a little confusing. Even in iterative, it says single delivery. So a question that could come to your mind is, if you wait to go for single delivery, why did we have iterations in the first place? All right. Well, I'll tell you why do we have. So, but point to be noted, even in iterative, we have nothing to release, not until the end of the project, not until here. But why did we have iterations? For a different purpose. You know what is that? To take feedback. So whatever we build, so it's like this in iterative, with whatever initial ideas we have, we build something and take it to the stakeholders here and get their feedback. We also identify improvements, and these we are going to incorporate in the next iteration. So with each iteration, we are improving the product. We are learning and we are improving the product. And only by the last iteration is only where we would have something what we wanted. So we can only deliver here. The product was never usable at the end of any iteration. Okay, that's the idea. Now take a look at the goal. Now, before I start speaking about the goals such as on time, within budget, they're anyways goal everywhere. That's no surprise. That's no news. So you got to understand what's written under goal as what is the most important focus of that life cycle. Doesn't mean there's no other goal, but which is the most important focus is what's written under goal. Let's take a look at that. So predictive, what's the ultimate goal here? Respect the budget. So we have a budget established right at the beginning. We do everything to ensure that our project is delivered within budget. The budget doesn't overshoot. This is my ultimate goal in predictive. All right. Now take a look at iterative. What's the goal? Budget? No way. Then what? Correctness of solution. Correctness of solution to be read as we want to build something excellent. We want to build a great product, an excellent product that would delight users. That's my ultimate goal. Okay. Remember, not budget. Then what? We want to build something excellent. You know where iterative would be a good idea? New product development. We're building some new product. Iterative is, very, uh, good fit in such kind of a project. You just have initial ideas about the product, right? You build something, take it to the stakeholders, get their feedback, right? Incorporate, go for several iterations. Every iteration you keep on improving, and then thus ultimately come up with something excellent. Okay, that's the goal. Now come to incremental. What's the goal? Very different. What's that? Speed. Speed means we want to deliver fast. This is the goal. Not an excellent product, but what do we want is we want to deliver fast. That's the goal. I'll give an example of incremental, and then we'll come back here. So let's say a simple example. Let's say I want to come up with a residential complex. We build a residential complex. There'll be 500 apartments. Okay, there'll be 5 towers. Each tower would have 100 apartments, total 500. Now I'll tell you what would be predictive and what would be incremental. Let us apply both of them and see, how will they look different. If I use predictive, it would look like, let's say it's going to be a 3-year project. Imagine 3-year long. So the way we would start here, we'll start with the basic stuff. Excavation would be done. Then we work on the foundation. Once the foundation is done, then we'll start raising those 5 towers, the structure. Once the external structure is done, we'll get to the interiors of these apartments. Now, parallelly, we would work on other amenities in the apartment, internal doors, checkpoint, security, other amenities, all of it. And look, by the end of 3rd year, here, all my 500 apartments ready to be delivered to the users. This is how predictive would look like. Now watch, I'm going to deliver the same project, this time using incremental. How would it be some different? Watch. Again, 3-year project, no sooner, 3-year, but here the approach little different. So what we're going to do, we now break down the development into iteration. Iteration 1, iteration 2, maybe iteration 3. Look, in predictive, we don't do that. Here we break down. And now come back to iteration 1. The basics will remain still the same. We start with excavation, then foundations, and then next coming to raising the towers. Watch, I don't work on all 5 towers in iteration 1. What we do in iteration 1, we pick up 1 tower and work on it. Only 1 tower, right? Not all the 5. And we complete this 1 tower. We get to the interiors. We're also working on other amenities. And watch, by the end of iteration 1 here, say iteration 1 is 1.5 years from start. Imagine all my 100 apartments ready. 100 apartments are ready to be delivered to the user. We'll deliver it, release it. Then in iteration 2, we pick up 2 more towers and work. And by the end of iteration 2, look, another 200 apartments delivered. And by the last iteration, 3rd one, there are 2 more towers that were remaining we work on, and we will release or deliver those 200 here. So you saw the difference? This is incremental. So here, what was the goal? We wanted to deliver fast. We didn't await our customer all, towards the end of the project. Okay, so that would be incremental. That's what I meant as fast. I'll take you back to the slide. Now, look at Agile. The best way to understand Agile is to understand the goal of Agile. You look at Agile this way. Agile is iterative plus incremental. Or in other words, you add up the goals of iterative and incremental. That's the goal of Agile. So that is, in Agile, my goal is excellent product, great product as in iterative, as well as fast delivery. We want to deliver fast, both of them. The same is written in a different language, providing value to the customer via frequent deliveries and feedback. So this was a comparison, very objective comparison of these life cycles. Now, one more thing I would do, while I did explain that, some people would confuse between iterative and incremental. Let's take a closer look at that. Once more look. Look, in both the cases, the requirement is dynamic, but there's a difference. Although it's written dynamic, I'll tell you a difference. Here, it is least dynamic, very less. But in iterative, is a lot dynamic. The requirement is lot dynamic. A lot of changes can happen. All right. And we see the table. Here activities are repeated. Here they're done once. Here single delivery, frequent delivery. Here the goal are very different, you see. I'll show you a simple diagram to further differentiate between iterative and incremental. Take a look at that first. Simple diagram, which people find easy to understand. Look at this painting. Much familiar painting, right? Should have seen it. Now, let's say this is my project and to build this painting, imagine. So what would be iterative and what would be incremental? This slide talks about both. The above approach you see is iterative, the below one is incremental. Let's look at it closely. So in iterative, see what you do. Look at first iteration. Whatever ideas we have, we build the product. Okay, first iteration. Like you see here, the first cut we have prepared. And then after the end of first iteration, you take it to the stakeholders, get their feedback. Now somebody said, look, hand on the mouth doesn't look nice. Very well, you incorporate those feedback. You see iteration 2, you have improved the product somewhat. It got some better, right? Then likewise, next iteration, you add on basic colors to that. Look, with every iteration, you're improving the product. Then here comes 4, and then ultimately 5. By the last iteration, watch, my product is ready. It can be released. If you recall, we said in iterative single delivery, think for a while. Was my product ready here to be delivered? Never. It was never ever ready, not until the end of the project, single delivery. Now take a look at incremental. What is the difference? Watch. Look at iteration 1 here. In incremental, what you do, you building the product incrementally. So look at iteration 1. You're not working on the whole product. You just focus on the forehead. That's it. And by the end of iteration 1, watch here. My forehead is ready. It's ready. Will never ever come back. If you try to recall the table, we said incremental. You perform activities once for the iteration. You won't come back. Unlike iterative, where you kept coming back. Okay. But here you don't do that. Sorry. Now come to iteration 2. In iteration 2, you add on to the functionality. So watch, the whole face is coming up by now. The product is getting built incrementally. Likewise, 3, 4. And by the last iteration, my product is 100%. But did you notice one thing? Frequent releases. If you remember, in incremental, frequent release, my product was always ready at the end of any iteration. It was not complete, but whatever we built was ready. Like the face was pretty much ready at the end of iteration. Now with a painting, it doesn't make as much sense. Imagine this were a software, let's say. So it's like end of iteration 1, 25% of the functionalities are already there and they're all functioning, working. You release it for operation use. We can use it with these limited features. And then end of iteration 2, my product would be, say, 40% build. You add on to the function and so on. And by the last iteration, all my product is fully built, all functionalities in it. So this is a very simple way to visualize the difference between iterative and incremental. Now, let me take you back to this table. And I would pause here. I would be very happy to check if anybody got a question on these life cycles.
Yeah, hi, Devashish. This is Devanshu. So,
okay, I have a request
question...
for questions. Devanshu, before that, I'll just tell you. You don't have to say I have a question, Devashish. No, straight. Put the question to save a few seconds. Go ahead.
All right. So my understanding, So my understanding is that iterative is part of incremental. Is that understanding
wrong?
Correct?
Understanding. Very, very, very wrong understanding. They're not. Otherwise, we would not have 2 rows. See, they're very different.
Why?
Here you are repeating. Here it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Why I got that impression is you gave that real estate example, right? In which we did the incremental one, in which we had 3 iterations: I1, I2, I3.
This one.
Yes, this one. So
yes,
we had this I1, I2, I3. So usually, like from experience as well, we have product iterations, which is similar, like iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3. So is this incremental or is this iterative?
I won't change my stance. It was incremental. It would remain incremental always. This is not iterative. This is not at all iterative. This is incremental. All right.
Okay.
See, in
Understood.
this diagram also, see, the point is you may not have experienced all life cycles. Ladies and gentlemen, it was not expected that you would have experienced all of life cycles. So fine, but get to know that what all things exist. So again, Divanshu, this is incremental, the below one. So they're not the same. Do you find both this approach same? If you're saying they're same, you find the first one above and below the same. No, there's a lot of difference, you see.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the idea.
Okay. This diagram is helpful. Thank you.
Next question, please. Anybody else got a question?
Actually, activity is the combination of phases. Like this is on done on execution process group.
First of all, Vikash, your sound is somewhat echoing. I'm not able to catch your whatever you said. I heard something called phases. Did you ask the iterations are same as phases? Is that what you're asking?
My is this third column activities. So
Yeah,
this
this one.
activities is the combine of phases like designing, testing.
Look, exactly. These are activities: feasibility, design, build, test. Yeah, this is one way. What
And
I mean by
this part
activities.
is a execution process group only, or planning activities, planning
No, these are
also.
not process group. These are not process group. These are not planning. These are like my phases
Okay.
of a project, you see: feasibility, design, build, test, deploy, close. So you ask this, is it process group? No, it's not process group. If you have a
Okay.
further question. Okay, I'll take the next question on chat from Ismail. What is the point of getting feedback on each release when doing incremental? In incremental, okay. Feedback is actually, before I read the next rest of the question, Ismail, feedback is more applicable in iterative and least in incremental, less, very less, much more in iterative. That's the goal. I'll read the next of the question, rest of the question. Will the feedback be incorporated somehow on that release or just taken into account for next one? For next one is fine, very clearly. So we are taking feedback to incorporate in the next release. That's how we improve the product. Okay, that is the goal. And this feedback, I'll again come back. The feedback is applicable in all of them. We do, but it is less or least in incremental, far more in iterative and agile, far more. But yes, we take the feedback for next iteration application. Ismail, if you got a follow-up, you can ask. Next question, please. Anybody?
Yeah, hi. What I'm means just the you are telling about the incremental is least dynamic. Can you bit more clarify? I'm not
I will
catching that.
clarify. For
Thank you very
example,
much.
when I say least dynamic, now for example, come back to my residential complex here. Now, end of iteration one, okay? I build 100 apartments, I give it to the users. Now, do you think, now somebody says, hey, I didn't like the tiles on the floor. Do you think I'll dig that and change the tiles? No way. I have already promised these guys, look, guys, what kind of specification, what apartments I'm giving. So the change is very minimal. The amount of change is very minimal in incremental. We fairly agree to the requirements at the upfront, fairly, but a little bit of evolution could happen. Little bit of evolution, change in approach is fine, but not much of change would happen. So we are less open to feedback. But in your incremental, you compare, or even agile, there we are big time open to changes, big time, a lot of changes. Like this painting, that's why I said this is more applicable in product development. Watch new product development. You conceptualize some product. You have some ideas. And let's say we'll take 6, 8 months to build the product. We don't ourselves know. We just have basic ideas. And you don't know what the end product would look like. So you build with whatever you know, first iteration. You take 2 weeks to build the first iteration with initial ideas you have. Now take it to the stakeholders, marketing, users, whoever, and they provide feedback. So with some feedbacks, you got some good feedback, some improvements you identified. You improve the product and keep on doing that. Interesting, when I started, ask me, am I going to go for 5 iteration or 4 or 6? My answer, I do not know. I will keep iterating, till I get something perfect, which is what I want. And I don't know whether I'll get the perfect product in 4 iterations or 5 or 6. You keep on doing. So change is more in iterative and in agile, very less in incremental. Back to you if you have a follow-up question.
Thank you. Thank you. Got it.
Okay.
One more thing.
Yeah.
If we choose incremental or iterative, so what we use, in Agile, we have a Agile methodology. So if we choose in my project incremental, so is any tools or to follow?
I got an answer to your question. Answer to your question. Look, now the answer to your question is in PMBOK or even otherwise, there is a lot of guideline on how to manage predictive. All right. And there is a lot of guideline, some guideline rather, enough guidelines rather, to manage adaptive. Adaptive as a whole. You remember what is adaptive? These three put together is adaptive. Okay. Now, there isn't much of an art and science on how to exclusively manage incremental. There aren't many methodologies on how to manage iterative. There's a lot on agile or adaptive. In fact, so in PMBOK, straight answer. In PMBOK, there is all guidance about how to manage predictive and how to manage adaptive. Okay, adaptive, you can read it as agile actually. In PMBOK, there, PMBOK 8th edition, wherever they say adaptive, guidelines for adaptive is kind of agile. There is no explicit guidelines on these two. I repeat, on iterative and incremental. No explicit guidelines. But they are known as life cycle models, hence I spoke. Now onwards, you will see when we study every concept in PMBOK, we will talk about how things will work in predictive and how in adaptive that adaptive can be read as agile. This is the answer. If you have a follow-up.
Yes, I don't have a question, but I need to add as a sample. Correct me if I'm wrong. On our terminal, we have consisting of 40 storage stacks now. And then when we build this one, we started building 14 tanks. After building 14 tanks, we started our operation. We started our business. And then when we are operating, we started on the next phase. So this is a part of incremental, right?
Yes, this sounds like incremental. That's right. Renault, we lost you. Are you saying something more?
Yeah, just to I only added just one good example.
Yeah, so the example that I heard from you, 40 you did, and then you went on to the production, and then you in the next one you will build another 40. So that's classic incremental. That's right.
Yeah, we started our operation while building part by part.
The remaining 40, new 40.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's what you do in incremental. Precisely.
Can you please repeat your particular that residential project for the agile? How you'll be going for the
wonderful
agile?
question. How will I use agile in my residential complex?
Yeah.
How do we do agile and how do we do iterative? Let's look at these two. So if you remember, I talked about how to apply predictive and incremental on the residential complex. I hope everybody understands. We look at how agile and iterative to be applied. All right, pay attention. Don't apply. Please don't apply. Not applicable. If you thought that any life cycle is applicable everywhere, that's the biggest mistake you commit. So not every a project can use any kind of life cycle. I repeat my answer once again. Agile and iterative are not applicable for residential complex. And better answer to that, I gave the answer. That was my next topic. Which life cycle to use where? Let me take you here. If there's another question, we'll take after this slide. So very important one. Which life cycle to use where? Suitability of life cycle. Here is a very simple guideline to understand that. Okay. So let's get the axis first. X-axis is degree of change. Degree of change to mean requirement change. So you read X-axis as how volatile the requirement is. So low to mean the requirements are rigid, fixed, no change. Okay. High to mean, read this way, requirement is highly volatile, Lots of changes we are expecting. And what is y-axis? Frequency of delivery. And low to mean, single delivery, no partial releases, one-time delivery. High to mean, very frequent deliveries. I hope you got both the axes. Now watch. If both are low, that is, our requirements are fixed, rigid, and single delivery, no frequent releases. So what's the solution to that? Predictive is the solution. So predictive approach is more suited when we know the requirements upfront, we're not expecting changes, and we want single delivery. Okay. And then, next, where incremental. Incremental is good idea when we know the requirements well, fairly, we know. Minimal or hardly no change or hardly any change would happen. Little bit can happen. However, we want to go for frequent deliveries. Okay, remember, we want what? Frequent deliveries. We won't wait till the end of the project to deliver something, like my residential complex. Okay, that's where incremental is a fit. Predictive, we want to build this bridge. We want to build the bridge, and we know 100% detailed requirement upfront. We're not expecting any change to happen to that. And do we want frequent deliveries? No, I can release my bridge half built. We will only release after the bridge is fully built. So predictive is good idea. Now come to where iterative. Watch, where iterative. Iterative is suitable when the requirement is highly volatile. Okay, the requirement is we are expecting lots of changes to happen. However, single delivery, like my new product development, we conceptualize some new product, we're building it. So requirements I barely know, it would change a lot, but delivery would be only once. Once we have that perfect product after several iterations, we'll take it to the market. That's where iterative is a good idea. And last thing, when both are high, the requirement is volatile, expecting lots of changes, and we want frequent delivery also, which is what I said, Agile is iterative and incremental. That's where you go for Agile. Like we want to build a software. Much of the requirement, the user phase and interface and all, very volatile. We only barely know the requirements. The requirement would be evolving. We keep on welcoming changes and all. And we are not waiting for one-time delivery. So once one module is done, we'll release it for operational use. Now with second release, we'll add more functionality and again release. Keep on doing that. So that's where Agile is a good fit. So this is suitability of lifecycle. So biggest takeaway, not to forget, not every project can be delivered using every lifecycle. So you have to check on the suitability. I hope we get that. Once again, any question if you have. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
So,
thank you very much.
Yeah. That's why we said Agile is like the far side of adaptive. Why did we say? Look, I said adaptive is a common term for all the three. So if all of them are adaptive, so Agile is the far side of adaptive. We understood where to use adaptive. All right. One last life cycle, let me bring in then. What's hybrid? Hybrid is a mix of life cycles, keeping it simple. In simple language, it is some blend of predictive and Agile. It could be any blend of predictive Agile. Okay. So that's a term given, which is hybrid. Hybrid could take various forms. This slide talks about 4 common forms of hybrid. Okay. Let's take a look at this. So the first diagram that it shows, this one is showing like, okay, before that also, one thing, when to use hybrid, any form, when to use hybrid. Hybrid is a good idea when there are some parts of the project which better be managed using predictive. We need certainty, better governance, good planning. Okay. So that's why we want to use predictive. There are other parts of the project for which the requirement is highly volatile. We would experiment, evolve that. So we want to use Agile for that. Hey, do you appreciate that? A single project can employ multiple life cycle to multiple parts. That's where adaptive or hybrid is a good idea. Now then coming back, there are 4 forms shown here. The first one that you see, this one is like using adaptive for development, and for rollout, they're using predictive. Say an example of that would be, let's say, to build the product, we are going to be using Agile. The requirement is volatile. We use Agile and evolve the product. And then after the product is built, we have to deploy that in multiple locations, let's say. So the deployment is fairly pretty well understood. Their requirement would not much change. So we want to do the rollout using predictive, okay, because the requirement is well understood. But the development part, the product development, we'll build using adaptive. So that could be an example of hybrid. More examples, 4 scenarios given. Look at the second scenario here. In this one, hybrid and predictive, not hybrid, adaptive and predictive, both running together all through the life cycle. So this one to me, we are using your adaptive or agile for the product development, okay? For building the product, for evolution of requirement, discovering feedback and all. For that, we're using agile at a low level, building the product. But at a high level for the project, we want governance, reporting, budget tracking, we want project timelines, rigid timelines and all. So for that governance, we're using predictive for the overall project with a detailed plan, with a timeline, with a budget, with governance and control. But at a low level, we are letting people to flex or change low level requirements and evolve the product. So that's how agile is being applied. So this is another form of adaptive. And the third diagram, what it shows, come here. This one is like the project is mostly predictive, mostly with a small adaptive component in it. For example, let's say we are doing a ERP implementation, all right? And the core deployment is going to be using predictive. We pretty well know the requirements and all, and we are going to be using predictive. But there's one module, let's say the analytics module. To build that, we'll use experimentation, feedback, we'll iterate over and over again to build a good analytics model. So for just that analytics module, we're using Agile. However, for the rest of the project, because the requirements are all pretty well understood, we're using predictive. So that could be another, example of hybrid. The last one, what it shows, here is another project which is largely Agile, adaptive we are using. But there's one component in it, for which we're using predictive. I'll give an example. Let's say we're building we're building an insurance application for a large insurance company, all right? And we find much of the requirements would be volatile. The user interfaces, all of it, these are very, very volatile. So we decided that adaptive would be suitable for most of the project, almost. But there's one portion in the project, let me show you, for which the requirement is 100% detailed. No evolution would happen. You know what? Which one? The insurance premium calculator. Premium calculator. And for building this premium calculator, we have 100% hard-coded logic available. There'll be no evolution here. 100% detailed requirement we have for that. So why use Agile for that? Don't build that premium calculator using predictive. So that's like, again, another example of hybrid where it is mostly Agile with a small predictive component. Yeah. So the takeaway is that hybrid is a name you give to life cycle where there is a mix, some blend of predictive and adaptive. There could be multiple forms of hybrid. Again, I would pause if anybody got a question on this. All right, good. So last thing we learned was the various life cycle models we have, or call them as development approach. Right then. Next, we'll move on. Now I'm going to touch upon Agile. Here, I'll just give you a little introduction to Agile. You will learn where does Agile come from, their background, history, a little bit. Many of you might already know. But before I start, let me ask a question. I want to know, what is your current level of knowledge on Agile? I would request everyone to score yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 to mean Agile is an alien term for you. You know nothing about Agile. 10 to mean you are an expert in various Agile frameworks. May I ask you to please score yourself in chat? 0 to 10. Your current level of knowledge on Agile. That will help me adapt my approach for delivery. I'll wait for scores. They have started coming. Okay, 480071. Okay, some people have got 8. Certified PSM. Okay, great. Okay, fine. Thanks for sharing your scores. Okay, as expected. 10 if Agile is safe, Scrum and Kanban. Okay, Agile is beyond that also, by the way, Himanshu. I'm sure you know that as well. But yeah, these are popular ones. That's a lot to know. All right, thank you so much for your score. So as expected, we have a wide range. We have all the way right from 0 to, I think, 8, 10 needs or 10 also. Okay. Then I'm left with no choice than to assume that Agile were an alien term for you and cover it right from scratch so that those who said 0 have no background of Agile can also pick up. And those who know Agile is cakewalk for you, nothing to bother. All right, let's do that. Yeah, take a look at the introduction to Agile. You know, where is Agile coming from? Watch. It was in the year 2001. Some people from the software development industry, frustrated with the traditional way of building software, they met somewhere in the US to discuss the challenges pertaining to traditional software development and to identify better ways to build software. And the outcome of that got popular as the Agile Manifesto. So this is where Agile comes from. And this manifesto talks about 4 values. They're listed here. We'll touch upon the values. Yeah, there are 4 values it talks about. Let's see which are those values. But before I start, I must tell you, there will be no question. They'll never ask you which is the value in the exam. But still good to know. Number 1, individual and interactions over processes and tools. You got to understand this way. In our predictive kind of environment, predictive, there's a lot of emphasis on use of processes and tools. You would have lots of elaborate, detailed processes for several things and emphasis on using tools. Predictive does that. Now, what these guys said, look, process tools are fine, but you know what? Who is building the product? Who is building the software? People. That's why individual and interactions within them over processes and tools. Okay. The next one, working software over comprehensive documentation. Again, try to recall in predictive, there's a lot of emphasis on documentation. You create hefty documents, variety of documents, this document, that document. So there's a lot of emphasis on documentation. All right. But what these guys said, look, what does our customer want? Does customer want documents? No. Customer wants a working software that it can take and use. They don't want documents. You're creating documents for your own sake. And that's why this guy said, hence, we should be focusing more on building a working software rather than creating unnecessary hefty documents. All right. Then third one, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So again, in predictive, we try to negotiate everything black and white and try to capture it in the contract as much as is possible. Everything black and white. And our execution will be guided by this contract. What the contract says, we'll do. What the contract doesn't say, we won't do. Okay. Now, what these people said again, same thing. Contract is fine. We definitely need to have a contract. But you know what? Not everything can be stated in a contract. We need to collaborate with the customer to understand beyond what can be documented. If you solely what is that? Sorry, not getting the word. If you solely confined to your contract, you miss out on what the actual need of customer is. So we should be collaborating with the customer constantly to understand their expectations rather than just relying on a contract. Then the last one, this one, responding to change over following a rigid plan. Read this way. As you already know, in predictive, we create a rigid plan, detailed plan. and rest of the project, we just follow through that. But what this guy said, we should be open to changes. We cannot be rigid. We cannot follow a rigid plan. In this fast changing world, expecting what customer said, or the requirements it gave 10 months ago, that would never change is very, very unlikely. So we should be open to changes. If you're not entertaining changes, then we're not helping the customer. So this got popular as an alternate way of building software. Okay, that's what is the Agile Manifesto. So what this guy said, read this one. While there is value on the items on the right, meaning having processes, document, contract, plan, they're not bad. They do provide value. But just that we value the items on the left more than the ones on the right. The ones these are highlighted. So this alternate thought process got popular as the Agile ways of working. So this is where Agile comes from. That's manifesto. Looks good? And then from these values, 12 principles of Agile emerged. Here are the 12 principles of Agile. So all Agile frameworks that align to this. Again, we'll take a look at all of these 12 principles that you see on the screen. And before I start, again, I tell you, there won't be a direct question. Look, this section has questions, not to confuse. But all I'm saying is no direct question. They'll not ask you which is a value. They will not ask you which is a principle. That would not be asked. But yeah, this knowledge somewhere is required. So I'll hence touch upon. Okay, principle number 1. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery. This is principle number 1 in Agile. That is, we don't wait till the end of the project. We keep delivering. We deliver early, that is release. We deliver early and keep delivering, frequent releases. That's what it means. Number 1. Number 2, welcome changing requirements. We just spoke. So there's no concept of freezing requirement in Agile. Please note, in Agile, you start at the beginning of the project, some requirements. Fine. You start off with that. And no surprise, we'll keep on adding more requirements. We'll change this. So change is welcome all through the project. Okay, that's principle number 2. 3 is frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Reference to. So third principle to be understood this way. Agile is about running a series of iterations. Iteration, what is iteration? Iteration is a time box. It's a time box. Equal size iteration. You decide the iteration should be 2 weeks. Okay. So if we decided 2 weeks, we'll run a series of 2-week iterations. Okay. Equal size iterations. And 2 weeks is not necessary, by the way. Iterations could be 1 week. They could be 4 weeks also. You decide. The shorter, the better. Shorter, the better. Okay. Now you say in my project, in 1 week, we could hardly build something. Then consider a little longer, 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah. So whatever the size. So third principle is that we run a series of iterations, and the iterations could vary anything between 1 week to a couple of months max. Number 4, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Look, try to recall. This is a very different way of working than predictive. In predictive, it's like this. The team building the product, they probably never talk to the customer. They don't. But here there is a clear guideline. The team building the product, they can anytime get in touch with the customer, people from business. What for? To clarify a piece of requirement, to better understand their expectation. So this channel of communication is ever present. Okay, very frequent. And that's how we ensure there won't be a mismatch in what the customer wanted and what the team is building, which happens a lot in predictive, right? That's principle number 4. I'll wait at the end of the slide if anybody got a question on principles, but let's complete all the principles. If you have a question, just, jot it down. You can ask me at the end. 5 now. Build projects around motivated individuals. Look, an agile team happens to be very different than a traditional team, right? So these guys, the team working in an agile environment, they're self-motivated people. They're knowledge workers. That's the reason the way we would manage them is very, very different. Very different than predictive. So like in predictive, let's go back to predictive. There, you may choose to micromanage your team. You may. But here, no way, no micromanagement at all. So what do you do? Here you give the team the environment and support they need and trust them. So you don't micromanage. Give them the right environment, support, and trust them. They would do a great job. Support them in doing that. So in simplest language, this principle to mean do not micromanage them at all, the way we do in a predictive kind of environment. Here we empower the team, we give them the freedom, and so they would work very differently. They're self-motivated people. Number 6. So before I proceed, so Agile is not about creating a few documents and following a process. No, it's a mindset. So which includes the kind of management and the kind of team you would have. Yeah, don't forget. 6 now. The most efficient, effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face. Look, all it means is, I'm sure you would agree, if I ask you which is the best way to communicate, that's face-to-face, isn't it? I'm sure you would agree. And that being the case, there is a lot of emphasis in Agile that, face-to-face communication is emphasized. Later sometime, we'll talk. There are certain meetings, certain events that will take place between the team. And there's a clear emphasis that these must happen in a face-to-face mode. Okay, so that's what the principle number 6 means, because that's the best way to communicate to member. Number 7, working software is the primary measure of progress. You know what it means, this principle to me. How do we measure progress? Say, let's say at the end of an iteration, let's say the team ran a 2-week iteration. And in the 2-week iteration, I must tell you, we studied that earlier also. End of every iteration, we got a working product. We have a working product or working software, always at the end of iteration. The only difference is, at the end of iteration 1, maybe my product is 10% built, 10% features are there. In the next iteration, I'll add on. My product is 15% built. Here it is 20% built. After last iteration, my product is expected to be 100% built, right? So, but point to be noted, at the end of this iteration, let's say product is only 15% built, but all 15% features are working. They can be released for operation use. The development happens in that fashion. All right. We always have a working product at the end of a sprint, remember. And now coming back to 7, what 7 means. By the end of, let's say, by the end of some iteration, the team could not build a working product. That means that iteration was a waste. They completely wasted. They did nothing in that iteration. So this is how we would measure progress, the ability of the team to deliver a working product. In other words, what I mean, the team claims we built 10 features, 15 features, we don't care. If they could not have a working product by then, that means they did nothing. That's a waste. So this is how we would measure progress, the team's ability to have a working product. That's what it means. Before I move on, I, by mistaken, used a word called sprint. Let me talk about what sprint. Look, all this while, I had been using the term iteration. Iteration is the time box I told you. Read the two terms synonymously. You will see that in the exam, in PMBOK, everywhere. Sprint and iteration are the same thing, that time box. Okay. Scrum, one of the Agile framework, uses the term sprint. Keep in mind, I'll also be using the terms interchangeably. Come to 8. Agile processes promote sustainable development. You know, what does this mean? This means every sprint or iteration, the team should be delivering equivalent amount of work. In other words, in Agile, what we prefer is consistency. In other words, what I mean is that in one sprint or iteration, the team delivered lots of work. In the next one, they're barely able to deliver. In the subsequent one, they deliver good. No, that's not a good team. A good team is one which is maintaining consistency. There is equivalent amount of work every iteration. That's a good team. In other words, fluctuating productivity is not indicative of a good team. That's what, the team should be delivering at a cadence, that's the idea, constant pace. That's a good team. The 9, continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Look, if you recall, one of the goals in Agile is excellent product. We just studied a while ago, remember, in goal. Agile is both the goal, excellent product as in iterative and speed, I told you. So since excellent product is my goal, hence there is a lot of emphasis in Agile on adopting good development practices, good engineering practices, good design practices, good development practices is a lot emphasized relatively as compared to predictive, because we want to build something excellent. Number 10, simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. This principle it could mean two things actually. One is eliminate waste. Okay, eliminate waste from your process. That is, you know what, Agile believes in simple processes, not lengthy, bureaucratic, unnecessary process and all. Doesn't gel with Agile. Agile believes in simplifying process, less steps, less bureaucratic. Okay, simple. So any elaborate process and all are seen as waste. Okay, so hence there is an emphasis that in Agile you eliminate a lot of steps, bureaucratic processes and all. Okay, that is one part. Keep things simple. And a second meaning of this principle is prioritize what you deliver. I'll come back here. That is, please note in Agile, always our goal is, watch, we deliver high priority items first. Okay, let's say this is a wish list of features we need to deliver. Let's say, yeah, these are features. Please note, in Agile, we always prioritize. So we would deliver high priority items first. Okay, so these ones will first deliver, which are high priority. High priority means those that provide more business value. So low priority items would be for later. If we were to leave, we may drop low priority ones. We keep on delivering as much as we can from this wish list. All right. And that's why we focus on first what we deliver is high priority items. So what we happen to leave out would be only low payback items, less items that provide less business value. Prioritization. Okay. So principle number 10 means these two things: eliminate waste and prioritize what you do. Number 11, the best architecture's requirement designs emerge from self-organizing team. Look, there are two terms we extensively use for an Agile team. One, self-organizing, another self-managing. You know what does that mean? Self-managing, self-organizing. Let's understand this way. Now, let us ask a few questions in predictive environment first. I'm asking the questions. Let's answer them from predictive. Who does the detailed planning? Who is going to assign work to the team? Who would monitor progress? Who would set the target for the team? Who would identify risk? I'm sure if you have to answer this question in predictive, the answer would be project manager. Okay. But now let us ask the same questions in Agile. The answers have changed, by the way. Again, my questions, I repeat: who does the detailed planning? Who would pick up the target for the sprint? Who does, who identifies risk? Who assigns work to the team? Who monitors progress? When in Agile, the answer is the team and not project manager. You may not, if you were not aware of this, get aware. Okay. And those who already know Agile would know that. So this is a very big difference. That's what we call a self-organizing team. So in an Agile environment, you don't organize them. They will organize themselves. While in a predictive, you would, as a project manager, do all of this stuff. That's what self-managing, self-organizing team do. The last principle. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective. So the last one means, look, there is an event that we will perform at the end of every iteration. The name of that event is retrospective. I'll tell you more about this event later sometime. But for now, a little bit high level. In simple language, retrospective is a lessons learned exercise. And in the retrospective, the team is going to identify what's working for us, what is not working, what lesson have we learned. It's a lessons learned exercise, very clear. And you know what is the output of retrospective? The team would identify improvements. The team would say, okay, these are 3 things or 4 things that we are going to improve in the next iteration. So at the end of every sprint, let's say our sprints are 2 weeks long, every 2 weeks you're identifying some improvement. And the intent is to implement these improvements in the next iteration of sprint. So in other words, and that is how continuous improvement happens. So I put it this way: in Agile, continuous improvement is a constant agenda. Every iteration, the team is going to get better and better by implementing improvements. In other words, what an agile team is today, after 5 iterations, this team would be some better team because they make improvement every iteration. Okay, so that's principle number 12. I would pause here. So these are the 12 principles of Agile. So I talked about manifesto, the 4 values, and the 12 principles. So I would pause to check if anybody got a question before I move on. Any questions? Okay, good.
Yeah, actually, apart from the software, any other services which are very much prominent to applicable for agile means
Everywhere in construction also we are applying these days. So ladies and gentlemen, agile originated from software, as you know, right? I told you software development guys they met in 2001. Okay, so initial years and all, agile had confined to the software development industry, but as of now, as we speak, agile has gone beyond, much beyond. Every industry, bit of agile is being adopted. Okay, so it is definitely not confined to software. It can be applied any kind of industry. It has been applied in research kind of work, other product development and all, and bits and pieces. We have a continuum. Don't forget that. Agile or hybrid rather. Okay, so we have a full continuum. So some aspects of agile is being applied in any kind of industry. Even for example, in my construction project, so I have to do the interiors of a particular, let's say, a room or something. For that, I may use Agile. For the broad structure development and all, obviously Agile is not suited. We understand. But for such work, even here we can do a bit of Agile. So very clearly, Agile has seen recognition in almost every industry in varying degrees. A bit of Agile is applied. I hope I answered the last question. Any other?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, looks good. Well then, what's that agile mindset? Understand it this way. Agile mindset is defined by 4 values. You remember the 4 values we saw in the manifesto? Those, these values. These ones, yeah, is defined by these 4 values. And thereafter, guided by 12 principles. We just studied the 12 principles on the last slide, right? Guided by 12 principles and manifested by several practices. Call them as practices or methods or frameworks. People use these terms interchangeably. Okay, there are multiple methods, framework, practices known as agile ways of working. So the right way of understand this way. Look, what happened is many people from different parts of the globe, they took these values and these 12 principles and applied in their own environment and thus emerged several practices or methods or frameworks in agile and some names. Here are some names. So the right way of understanding is look at agile as a blanket term. It's not about a single method. A number of practices, methods put together is known as agile ways of working. In fact, there are 50 known agile approaches, 50. Some are very common, others are less common, fine. Some popular names, this is not the exhaustive list, by the way. Scrum, XP, Scrumban, DSTM. These are a few names, you see, and there are many, many others. So the takeaway from this slide is that understand that agile being a blanket term. So what's common about all of these agile frameworks or methods? Here, these values and these principles. That's what is common about all of them. Okay. So that's a blanket term. We already understood where to use agile. I repeat that. There are 2 types of work, definable work and high uncertainty work. Definable work to mean when the scope is fully detailed, the requirement of scope known upfront, we're not expecting changes to happen. Such work is definable work. If that's the case, do we use agile? Please don't. Use predictive, this work. But if it is high uncertainty work, High uncertainty mean requirement uncertainty. The requirement is volatile. Even technical uncertainty. You don't yourself know how to build the product. Clear view you don't have. You would learn that, on the go. So that's high uncertainty work. When such is the work, Agile is a fit. We spoke. Okay, same thing. This slide, what does it talk about? Transitioning to Agile. Let's say an organization which has been using predictive all these years, they want to switch to Agile ways of working, right? They want to transition from predictive to Agile. There are two possible approaches. The first one I would call as a big bang approach. A big bang, you understand? Big bang is, let's say there are 10 projects going on in the company. So we say, okay, from 1st June onwards, all projects will use Agile. You go train everybody on Agile framework and there's a cutover date. That's big bang. Could be one approach. Second one I'll call as a hybrid or a gradual approach. The second approach is like, watch. So there are 10 projects going on. Yeah. No, I'll rephrase. Hybrid is like, let's say we are using predictive all these years. What we do, we pick up some of these principles. There are 12 of them, You pick up 2-3 of them. Like we decided we'll deliver in iterations. We'll practice self-organizing team. Whichever you want, you pick up 2 or 3 of these principles. And then you go apply them in your otherwise predictive environment and get some value, some benefit out of it. And then thereafter, keep on gradually adopting more and more of these principles. That would be a gradual or hybrid approach, right? So these are two possible approach when it comes to Agile adoption. Now I ask you a question. Question is, say you are an Agile expert and you are asked, some organization asks you, which strategy should you adopt for Agile adoption? What do you say? What do you say? Which one would you advise an organization to
implement, right? Like going slowly. It's better than big bang.
Okay. All right. Right. I heard you. Yeah, that's the right answer. So possible exam question. If there's a question on this one in the exam, which approach is better suited for Agile adoption, please go with the second one. And justifying, how do I say that? In fact, both of these approaches were tried by different organizations. And it has been seen that the second approach has been relatively more successful. So that is why we say that the second strategy would be a better one for Agile adoption. Another good practice when it comes to Agile adoption, how about going for a pilot before an enterprise rollout, wide rollout, is an excellent idea. Meaning, say there are 10 projects going on, it's not a great idea to go and implement Agile, all of them all at once. So you pick up one less risky project, simple one, apply Agile on that, be successful. And then once successful, then go ahead and replicate it onto other projects. That's a good idea. You know why? There's no one way to apply Agile. Look, what worked for somebody else may not work as for you. So you got to try out, see what's working for you. You'll have to experiment and see. Okay. So try that on a single project, be successful. And then you take it to other projects. That would be a better idea rather than going for an enterprise-wide rollout all at once. Okay. So these are a couple of good practices when it comes to Agile adoption. Right. Hope you understand. One last thing. I'll pose it as a question again. Try. I never myself told you the answer. The question is now, let's say some Agile team, they want to use Agile. Now question is, should they stick to any one of these methods? One. Or the question is mixing a good idea? Mixing means some team says, let's understand what do we mean by mixing. Some team says, okay, we'll do certain things that Scrum says. Along with, we'll also apply something that XP says on a single project, something that, let's say, Kanban says, right? So is mixing an acceptable approach? Yes or no? Please answer this one. That's an exam question. Is mixing an acceptable strategy? Yeah.
For a single project, mixing is not a good idea.
Okay, I heard you. Others, what do you say?
Yes, mixing can be done.
Mixing can be done. Okay. The right answer to this question is yes, mixing is no bad idea. And point to be noted, I never meant that sticking to one is a bad idea. Okay, you can stick to one, nobody denies. But at the same time, let's not forget that mixing is pretty much an acceptable approach, is what I wanted to say. In fact, how do I say, if you go and check what most teams actually do on the ground, you will see mixing is far more common. Mixing is far more common than sticking to one. That is how we say, mixing is a good idea. All right. Well, so this is all I had in this small section where I just introduced you to Agile principles and values. Again, I would pause. If anybody got a question on the last part, please feel free to ask. All good so far? All right, then. Somebody has a question? Nehal, you're saying something? Okay. All right, then we now move to the last section of business environment, where we're talking about a little bit on project governance. Okay. Yeah. You understand the term governance? What does governance mean? Governance means the control framework, right? In order to ensure that a project runs in a structured manner, we need to define some kind of a governance and apply, right? Yeah. So that's governance. If you want a definition, here's the definition. They'll never ask the definition in exam, but still, governance is what? Is the framework, function, processes that guide project management activities in order to meet, exceed project objectives. Okay, that's governance. So it's a framework of what? It's a functions, processes, and all that guide your project management activities. So you need to establish some kind of a governance structure and then apply that to any project to ensure it runs in a structured manner. So Vikas said it's rule and regulation defined. Yes, this kind of rules and regulations. That's right. And I'll come back to this slide. But before that, who would define governance? There'll be a governance board. In some projects, they have a governance board who is going to govern the project. It could be a single person sponsor. Elsewhere, it is a committee or a board with some people who would provide all direction or governance to a project. PMO would establish the governance framework if there is a project management office in an organization. Okay, they would be defining the governance framework. So your governance for the project has to be aligned with that, right? And how much of governance is a question. So this cannot be standardized. You cannot do that. You got to tailor it to the needs of the project. So too much governance would annoy stakeholders, agree, and it would spend a lot of effort you would spend there. At the same time, too less governance, what is the problem? Control is gone. Okay. So that is why when it comes to governance, how much governance is more of a matter of balancing. Not too much that it is seen as a burden, and not too less that the control is gone. Okay, so it should be a matter of balance. And when I say governance, defining governance, what does that include? What's governance? So defining these is what is governance. Let's take a look at that. What would be the success criteria of the project? Okay, defining that is governance. Define the success criteria. Risk and issue process. We need a process for dealing with issues and risk, like how risks are identified, how do you analyze them, what level of issues, risks would require escalation to whom. Okay, we need a step-by-step process to deal with issues and risks. That is governance. Defining that is governance. What else? Project organization chart. We would create a hierarchical project org chart showing who all are involved in the project. Right? So, that is also part of governance. Yeah. Communication related. What are some communication related guidelines you could have? any kind of specific tools, any kind of policies, procedures with regard to communication you got to follow for internal, for external communications, especially, could also be documented here. Decision-making process. Who makes what level of decision? In governance, we define this also. I'm sure you would agree, not every decision would be made by the project manager. So we define that. So in certain projects, we'll quantify that. Small decisions, for example, can be even left to the team to make. Certain other decisions, better the project manager makes. Decisions of high magnitude may require escalation to the project sponsor. So we would define that if a decision would have an impact of, let's say, less than 2% of the budget, this magnitude, PM is empowered to decide. While decisions of magnitude higher than this require escalation to the sponsor. Yeah. So we would define that also as part of governance. Guidelines for aligning project governance with organizational governance. Look, every organization would have variety of governance. Every company has corporate governance. I mean, there'll be risk-related governance, information security-related governance, quality-related governance, sustainability-related. So most organizations would have variety of governance that would apply at the organization level. Now, projects governance has to align with the corporate governance. Projects being a part of the project, that's natural, it has to. Okay, the default position being full compliance with organization level governance. However, based on the needs of the project, the governance for the project could be tailored as required. Life cycle approach. Life cycle approach to mean we just learned that predictive, iterative, incremental, agile, what. So you decide and state we are going to use predictive or agile, whatever in the project. A process for stage gate. Do you understand what is stage gate? I'll just jump elsewhere. Watch. Usually we divide project into phases. Okay. Example of phases, typical example, feasibility, requirement, prototype, design, build, test. These are example of phases, right? So what is phase? If you ask me, I would say phase is a segregation of the project. You segregate and segregate based on what? Based on type of work. So look at the type of work in feasibility versus prototype versus build. Very different, right? So you segregate based on type of work. We call them as phases. And generally, a common practice is conducting a review at the end of every phase. Okay, so we would hold a review. Okay, every phase, and we are going to hold a review here, here, here. At this review can be given many names. I'll come to the names, but before names, the agenda of the review is pretty much the same. The agenda is, let's say we are doing the review at the end of phase 2 here, this review. Here, the focus would be to check, did we complete all the work in phase 2 as planned? Okay. Are the deliverables appropriate? Okay. Then we would, end of a phase is a go, no go decision making point. We'll check if justification is still there or not. You remember, we spoke about business case yesterday, which we create before initiation to check justification. Only if there, we would start a project. Do you realize, let's say we started a project, there was a very nice business case. After a couple of phases, due to developments, internal developments, external developments, the justification may be affected or may be completely gone away. Can happen. So we must check end of a phase, is there justification to proceed with the project or not? Okay, we generally do. So that's why end of a phase is actually, again, a go, no go decision making point. Meaning, let's say, for example, after feasibility phase here, we find the product is not economically viable. We find that we may drop the idea of proceeding with the project. There's no point. Yeah. So I was telling you, this is what happens in a review. And generally, go ahead is given, as an outcome of the review to proceed to the next phase. And this review can be given many names. Some people would call it as phase exit. Some people, I said, call it as phase exit. Some people call it as stage gate. Some people even call it as toll gate. This review can be called as toll gate. Some people even call it as kill point, another interesting name. Why this name, kill point? Because the project can be killed at the end of a phase. Stopped early if the justification is gone. So these are alternate names given to this review. But whatever the name, the agenda fairly remains the same. So I'll come back here. We were talking about a process for phase M reviews. Who would conduct these reviews? Let's say PMO would do it, or will deploy a third party to do the review. What would be the process that would be used to conduct that review? Would all be documented under stage gate review. Okay, before I proceed, somebody raised hand. Divanshu, go ahead.
So this stage gate or phases, is it similar to milestones in a project?
No. Okay, understand this way. Every end of a stage is a milestone. But milestones are not confined to end of a stage. Milestone is any major event. So end of a stage is a major event, so milestone. For example, project kickoff is not the end of a phase, but it is a milestone. So there could be milestones beyond stage ends.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah. Welcome. One last thing, let's see in governance, a process to deal with change requests. I'm sure you would agree after we have created the baselines, okay, the planning is done, the baseline. Thereafter, any change requests coming in, we need a systematic process to deal with changes. Who, how to raise the change, who to submit it to, how do we do the assessment of change, okay, who would decide on change requests and more. We'll some other time learn the process, not to worry, but that process is also documented under governance. So when we say define governance for a project, it is defining the stuff that we call as governance. Again, I would pause. Anybody got a question on governance can stop me now.
Basically, governance is a separate thing, right? Like project manager is responsible for the project governance, or is it a separate person who does the governance
Separate
part?
performance. If I were to do, there'll be conflict of interest. So there'll be a governance board, a project board, a steering committee, whatever name you give it. PM would be typically reporting to this board or committee, and this committee or board would be responsible for governance.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Anybody else got a question? Okay, looks good. Take a look at this slide now. This slide talks about how governance would be a bit different when it is predictive versus adaptive or agile. I keep it simple, ladies and gentlemen. When we see the word adaptive, we can plainly read it as agile. Keep it simple. So as you know, in predictive, the governance, focus on control, compliance, upfront decision making. That's kind of focus in predictive. While in agile, we hold reviews and all in agile, and these are more frequent, lesser formal, more feedback driven as compared to predictive. So that's what is stated here. Look, in predictive, you split the work into phases, which is what I was telling you. Those example of phases, okay? These you do in predictive. In agile, we don't have phases. In agile, we rather go for iterations. We spoke that time box, okay? So this is one major difference. So in predictive, review results at a phase gate, end of a phase. This is what I told you. Call it kill point, toll gate, governance gate, phase exit, all these names given. This is where you review at the end of every phase. But in agile or adaptive kind of environment, here you review the results more frequently, that is at the end of iterations. Iterations would tend to be generally more frequent than phases, right? So in other words, it is more frequent in agile, right? And in case of predictive, it is lesser frequent. And then in predictive, this gates that we have, it is more to decide, shall we continue to the next phase, or shall we stop the project, end the project or program, or do we continue with modifications? This is what you decide, major decision, whether or not to continue. But in case of adaptive, it's more like gather feedback. End of iterations, it is more to gather feedback, take action, improve value, or improve the product. Why are we improving the product? To increase value. That's the idea. It is more driven towards improvement feedback, all right, rather than decision making whether or not to continue. And where do you stop? In adaptive, you continue that until customers' acceptance criteria are satisfied. Okay, so you keep on doing that. So this is a little difference in approach when it comes to governance between predictive and adaptive. High level view. Okay. Stop me if you have a question again, else I'll take you to the last part of business environment, where we're going to talk about certain organizational influences. Basically, here we talk about certain organizational factors that could directly or indirectly influence project management. We'll see that. So do I need to attend to a question? Any this part?
So in adaptive, the iterative we can replace with a sprint.
Vikas, are you saying we lost you?
I'm saying that in adaptive, we
Yeah.
replace with the terms iterative as a sprint. If we choose the Scrum.
Iteration is termed as sprint. That's correct. So
Okay, so we each we have divided into a sprint, and we have that terms.
lost you again. Because there's
Okay.
some issue with your audio. You please put your question in the chat. Okay, we're not able to hear you. You can put it on the chat. Anyone else got a question in the meantime? Yeah, good. All right, because you can put it in the chat, I'll be happy to look at it. Then we'll move on, the last part of business environment. Now, one of the factors is organizational structure. This is one of the things that could influence project management. So in the industry, you would find organizations would adopt one of these three structures. Watch: functional, matrix, and projectized. The right way of understanding functional and project oriented, also termed as projectized. I use the word projectized, all the same. Call it as projectized or project oriented. Yeah. So this project oriented and functional are like the two extremes. So we have functional at one extreme, project oriented or projectized at the other end. Matrix can be seen as midway, okay, somewhere in between the two. So that makes broadly three type of structures. Let me explain them one by one. Okay, I'll draw and explain them. So starting with functional organization. In functional organization, look, this is how a functional organization look like. Watch. We have the chief executive here. The company is so structured, and there are several functions in the company. Okay, there are several functions, and each function would be headed by a functional manager. Okay, that was functional manager, FM. You understand the function? Like, let's say this is engineering function, and this guy is head of engineering. So this one is operations. Okay, all operations staff here, and we have this head of operations. That's functional manager. I hope you understand functional manager. So this is how the company is structured. Watch. And now look at it from a project's perspective. So first thing to be noted, the work that is done in a functional organization is not projects. I said not projects. So project would be like a rare thing. Once upon a time, a project would be taken up. Let's say these people get together to work on a project, cross-functional team. People coming from different functions, they would get together to make a project happen. Now understand the way we are going to get the project executed. Watch. In a functional kind of a setup, watch. This channel of communication would not be there. It's simply not there. I mean, this staff requires some input from this staff from the other function. It doesn't talk directly. Then how will it happen? Watch. This staff will speak to the functional manager. All right. And this functional manager in turn would discuss the concern with this functional manager. And this functional manager would pass on the instruction here. In other words, what I'm trying to show you is that in a functional organization, all coordination for the project is happening at the functional manager's level. Please note. Okay, it's happening here. In other words, coordination is missing within the team. All right, this is the kind of environment. So very clearly, it's not a environment that for projects, definitely. Okay. Yeah, so this is a functional organization to begin with. And I said, remember, don't forget, projects are a rare thing. Once upon a time, you do a project. Yeah, majority of the work the company performs is not projects. And then take a look at matrix now. Let me bring in matrix. In matrix, what happens is the difference. Here also we have, let's say he is the chief executive. And even here we got functional managers. We have several functions, each headed by a functional manager. And these are again those functional staff, okay, reporting to this functional manager. Likewise, there are more functions and so on. Now, first difference, in matrix, more work is project. I'll help you with numbers. Look, first I'll give you numbers also, watch. In functional, as I said, like nobody is working on projects. I would write NA. So like once upon a time, a project would be undertaken. But in matrix, any given point in time, projects are undertaken. And I will also go beyond. If you want to know, within matrix also we further divide as weak matrix, balanced matrix, and strong matrix. This is a further classification. I use the word weak, balance, and strong matrix. So before I tell you more, a weak matrix is like closer to the functional organization, and a strong matrix is closer to projectized or project oriented. While balance is classic midway, that is the right way of understanding, somewhere in between. So come back. I was telling you how much of work is project. Watch. For all the matrix I'll give you. Like in weak matrix, around 20% work is project, or 20% staff is deployed in projects. The majority of the work is not project member. However, any given point in time, you see projects are going on. While in balanced matrix, it's like 40 to 50% work is project. So almost half the work is project. While in strong matrix, 60 to 70% work is project. So majority of the work the company performs is project. So in all matrix, projects are undertaken any given point in time. That's one thing. Next, let's say if a project is taken up, look the difference now, how it is going to be executed. Let's say these guys get together to work on a project. Okay. Now, in this case, this channel of communication is very much present. Just give me a second. I'm back. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah, I was saying, in the matrix setup, this channel of communication is very much present. If you recall, in functional, I did show you, it's not there. Okay, the coordination happened at the functional manager level. So, but here in matrix, there is coordination within the team. So there is improved coordination within the product. That's one. And next, I'll add more characteristics. Let me tell you. So here in matrix, you would have a project manager as well. Space, I'll write here. So if you see in functional organization, I didn't show you a project manager, but in matrix, we have both functional manager and project manager. So that would raise a couple of questions. Then who will these team members or these staff report to? This staff will have dual reporting, please note. It would, this team member working on the project reports to functional manager. That's the functional reporting. And not to forget, it reports to the project manager as well for project related affairs. So there'll be dual reporting, please note. Dual reporting. All right. Yeah. So because of this, there'll be conflicts also. Like this team member. So look, the functional manager would assign functional work to this guy. Project manager will assign project work. Poor guy doesn't know which one to prioritize. You know, such conflicts also arise. Yeah, so that is a little bit on matrix kind of a setup. Then I'll take you to the other extreme, project oriented, also termed as projectized. I'll write it here. Let's call it as projectized. Now here the structure, very different. Watch. Again, let's say he's the chief executive and watch. Difference. First thing, there is no function and no functional manager. There's no functional manager. We don't have a concept of engineering function, somebody heading it. Simply not there. Instead, what? Instead, here, project manager 1, project manager 2, project manager 3, and so on. And this project manager, it has got a dedicated team of people, cross-functional staff as required. Okay, and these all guys working on a project one headed by this PM. Here's another project going on. Again, this PM has a team of cross-functional staff, all these guys working on a project two headed by this PM, and so on. This is project oriented. So look at the differences here. All work is project. I'll add here. Say, give you how much of work is project. So last one, project oriented, all work is project, or rather I would say 90% staff is deployed in project. Some support always required. So in other words, in projectize, all work the company performs is projects. So this company is into this business of doing projects. So where does revenue come from? From projects. Where are all staff deployed? On these projects. Okay, that's the primary business for them. Yeah, that's a projectized organization. And project managers, very powerful. They're fully empowered. There's no dual reporting. The team members report directly to the project manager. So I would pause here. So these are the various structures. Okay. So any organization you would find in the industry would be adopting one of these structures: functional, matrix, and projectize. One last thing before I let you ask questions. What's composite? Composite is a mix of structures in a single organization. Think of a large company, let's say, which has 3 to 4 lines of business. Do you realize it could well happen that in one line of business, the company prefers to be, let's say, projectized? That suits. For another line of business, they happen to be matrix that is suitable for that. Yeah, could happen. We call such as composite, which is a mix of structures within an organization. Yeah, anybody got a question on the structures? Can stop. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Like you mentioned, in the functional, the staff or team members does not communicate within the different functional team. It's mostly the functional manager. And in the matrix, we will have the dual coordination. But what about the project oriented? Can
very much there.
Members?
Got it. Definitely, there's lots of coordination within the team. There is coordination within the team. There is no function. No, don't forget. In case of project is one thing to be noted. Come back. Look, in matrix and even in functional, we have various functions and various functions getting together to work. But in projectize, we don't have functions. There's no concept of function. These all people, all skills required, one team. None of them belong to any function. They only get together as a team. So there'll be highest level of coordination within them. I hope I answered the question. If you have a follow-up.
So the coordination will be happen within the team, so not with the different team.
There is no need of different team coordination because this whole entity is a project team. You're missing one thing, gentlemen. This whole is a team. These guys are other project, not a part of the project. But go above. Here, we have one project. All these guys working on a project. So this guy is from engineering. This is from operations. Maybe there are more functions involved. That is not the case here. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Any other? There's a question in the chat I'll pick up. Can you give me an applicable example? Sure. I'll give you example for all the types. Okay. Functional to begin with. Where will functional structures be more common? Typical production manufacturing company. Think of a glass manufacturing company, let's see. Nothing to do with project, pure operational manufacturing kind of work. So these would tend to be more functional organization. Matrix is very common, by the way. Most companies are matrix. You talk about, say, most big IT companies. IT is not the only one. Just I use IT as an example. So most companies are matrix. And projectize is rare, by the way, less. I'll tell you, projectize where. Certain industries where you find more of projectize would include, one is real estate. Think of a real estate company. There are 10 projects going on, 10 different sites. So that's a classic projectize. They check where our staff is deployed in these 10 projects. Where is revenue coming from? These 10 projects. So they're, after all, only doing projects. That's all. Another industry where it is popular, consulting. Talk about big four consulting companies. These big four, KPMG, AY, Deloitte, PwC, these are more projectized. Okay, so these are certain industries where you see more of project-oriented kind of a structure. Okay, I hope the example helped. If you have a question, let me know. And what is your organizational structure? You should know that. If you don't know, go back and ask management. You don't have to discover. This is something that should be known. And if you want to make out, here is a little bit of characteristic basis which you can make out, take a look at this table. Okay. So if you want to see the table, team members loyalty, I mean the project team members. If it is a functional organization, who will the team members be loyal to? To the functional manager, the functional department. And if it is projectized, then the project manager or project. What about matrix? Conflicted loyalty. You understand? That's what I was explaining, because dual reporting is there. So the staff would report to functional manager for function related affairs. Don't forget, the functional manager is like, that's the functional reporting. The functional manager is responsible for the growth and development of the team member, right? And to the project manager as well for the project duration. Hope you understand. I must have added one thing. Look how resourcing is done in the projects. I'll go back to the structures. Look, in matrix, understand in matrix. In matrix, all resources are with functional managers. Please note, they are the owner of resources. Project manager would be borrowing resources from functional managers temporarily for the project duration. And it would get the work done. Once the work is done, it would return them back to their function. So understand this way, the resources, they come from their function and work on a project for a while. Once the work is done, they'll go back to that function. Look, function is like the home of the resource. Every resource belongs to a home or function. The function is like their home. They come, work, and they go back. Functional manager is like parent. That would be one way to some analogy. Similar in functional also. Okay. Why did I get that? Yeah, we're looking at this table. There's something in chat. Let me check. If big organization have one project and one PM, my God, you defeat the definition of big. If it is a big organization, why would they have one PM only? Still, I'll read, but okay, I heard that big organization have one project, one PM, but various department, sale, marketing, varies. Is that varies? Okay, a lot of functional manager. So it consider matrix or projectiles. Gentlemen, the fact that there are marketing, sales, finance, it is not projectized. Ladies and gentlemen, get it right. In both functional and matrix organization, there is presence of these functions, marketing, engineering, operations, sales is there, all right? In projectize, you don't have it simply. So projectize ruled out from your question, Vikash, the fact that there are functions. Now the question boils down to whether it is matrix. You ask matrix or projectize. Projectize is ruled out because there are functions. So answer is clear, matrix. Hope I answered that question. Then come to take a look. Project team members reporting. I talked about team member who report to function manager, here to PM, here dual reporting. I said that. Okay. Project manager role. This one you see. If it is a functional organization, seldom there'll be no PM. If you try to recall when I did draw and explain, I didn't show a PM, did I? So PM role would not be there in function, right? But in PM in matrix, there could be a project manager, okay, project coordinator or something like that. But in projectize, there'll be full-time project manager role. But here is like, there may be a part-time, this one to be read as part-time project manager. You know, part-time project manager, I mean, some vice person is picked up and made project manager for a while. So once that project is done, then you come back and do whatever you are doing. Say that whatever is manage operations or whatever. But in projectize, full-time to mean there are a pool of project managers whose job is only project management. They do nothing else. This project over, they'll take on another project. That's what it means. Okay, yeah, that's what is explained here also. Yeah, that's a little bit of comparison. Okay. Some question in the chat, let me check. Tahir asks, any difference between project manager and project leader? No, project leader is used as an alternate title for project manager in certain organizations, especially matrix kind of organizations. They mostly use this term leader and all. Okay. Next, you mentioned example of project-oriented organization is construction industry. Yes, I did. But they also have sales. Look, if you remember when I was telling you projectize, I said 90. Why did I not say 100% staff would be deployed in project? I carefully said 90% because which company doesn't have sales marketing? So that would be always there. That's why 90%. But unlike a matrix where you have several functions and resources are across functions, all across functions. That's not the case in construction. Your 90% would be on projects only, and some 10% for sales, marketing, admin, HR, compliance, that would be there. I hope you understand. So every company has these basic functions. Okay, Manoj, if it is not clear, let me know. Do we have pure Velina example of only? No, there can be no company where all people are on projects. Who will do sales marketing? Who will look at compliance? So 10% staff has to be there. That doesn't change anything. Okay, so 90% or most of the staff will be deployed in projects. But if it is matrix watch, never. All 90% staff never on projects. There are other things they would be on. Okay, any other question if you may have? Project Management Office. Just a moment. Okay, how much time do we have before the break? We just need another 10-15 minutes for this business environment. Okay, it will take time. Let us pause. Let's pause. Any questions? All I'll keep PMO for later. Any questions that you couldn't ask yet, you would like to now ask, feel free, please. Any questions? I see a couple of people joined today. So just in case for those people who joined today, here are the links. Okay. So there is a link for WhatsApp group. You may join it, and there is a link where you find the recordings of the training. Okay. So yeah, you can click on this link, recording link to request access if you haven't already taken it. Yeah. All good. Okay, fine. If you have no questions, let me ask you before we proceed. What are typical functions of a PMO? I'm sure you would have come across a project management office. So if there is one in your company, what are the responsibilities or functions of a PMO? Please use chat to answer that. As per experience, what does a PMO do? Yeah, I'll be interested in your responses. Somebody said PM report to PMO. Maybe, not necessarily, but maybe. In fact, there are types of PMO. I'll get there. Could be a possibility. Project managers report to PMO. Agreed. Keep adding, please. Responsibilities of a project management office. I'm reading from chat. Provide direction and guide, setting governance. Wonderful. Agree to that. Instructing. Okay, went on. Instructing around advice to PM. Okay, point taken. Define approach process of how work is to be done. Wonderful, Santosh. Agree. Organizing governance, organize steering committee meeting. You meant yes, Monica. Aditya says building conducive environment for project. Oh yes, even that. Renault says ensure project follows organizational standard. Absolutely. Checking compliance. PMO would do that. PMO guides. Yeah, they provide guidance. Coordination with other teams. Okay, point taken. Providing and managing the projects in and out. Okay, what will the project manager do then? Okay, they can guide, they can provide guidance. We'll see. Ramya says manage risk and issues, project status reporting. No, here I would deny. See, the idea is what will project manager do? If PMO manages issues and risk, prepares status report, then what will project manager do? So generally, these would fall on the plate of project manager. However, there is a point. I don't deny it outright. Watch, large projects and all, there may be a PMO that assists the project manager. assist the project manager in maintaining issue risk register, compiling with reports. That could be a possibility. But the responsibility of managing issues risk in the project, let that stay with project manager. Okay. Himanshu says helps in resourcing in the project onboarding, offboarding. Yes, agree to that. Set up all document templates. Yeah, that's right. If there's a PMO, they would define the project process template and all. That's right. They will mandate its usage also. Rightly said. All right, wonderful. Gave a lot of answers. Train project managers. Yes, even that. Yes. PMO can cater to the training need of project teams. Monthly status, project status to be provided to PMO. Yeah, PMO may demand that from projects because PMO would do a lot of reporting across projects to the senior management. Okay. Yeah. Very well. You said that. So these are typical responsibilities of PMO. What you said is written here: resource management, approach development. How do we perform project management in our company? Training, oversight, monitor compliance. Yeah. Document management, coordination, communication. Yeah. These are typical responsibilities of a PMO. Very true. I think we'll take a break here, come back and resume from this statement. Any last question before I start the break? Any last question? All good. All right, then follow this timer. See you in 30 minutes. Yeah, thank you. I'm back. Hope you're back.
Yes, DJ, we are.
Yeah. Great. All right, then we resume. Here, last thing we spoke was the typical functions of a project management office. So in one line, if you ask, I would say project management office is a centralized department within an organization whose job is to support projects. So if there's a PMO, let's say there's a PMO, there are dozens of projects going on in the company. This one PMO can extend their support to all these projects. Many ways they support. You already kept me. They're listed over here. You saw. One last thing, PMOs are classified into three types. In the industry, what PMOs operate in one of these modes. Some are known to be supportive, some are controlling, and a third type of PMO, directive. Let me give you the meaning of these. Supportive PMOs to begin with. Look, these are characterized as exerting low level of control. That is, these PMOs are not much empowered. The level of control these PMOs would exert on the project is low. So, their job, the supportive PMOs, their job is confined to providing consultation to the projects. That is, these PMOs would help project managers and teams implement the organizational method, okay, help with templates, processes, and all. They maintain the organizational level repository. That's what they do. So their job is confined to providing consultation. We call them as supportive PMOs. There are many companies who have such PMOs. A second type of PMO, controlling PMOs. Look, these are characterized as exerting moderate level of control. Not low, not very high. Okay, so somewhere in between. So what do these PMOs do? Well, even these provide consultation, like the supportive ones. But the additional thing that controlling PMOs would do, which the supportive ones did not, is they empower to mandate compliance. So these PMOs would come conduct audits, checks on the project to check compliance. Is the project team adhering to the organizational project management method defined or not? And if they find there are lapses, then they would raise NCs, non-compliance observations, and the team has to take corrective actions and comply. So in other words, these PMOs mandate compliance. They empower to do that on top of providing consultation. So that's controlling PMOs. Again, certain other organizations, they have controlling kind of PMOs. A third type of PMO, directive. Look, these are characterized as exerting high level of control. That is, in other words, these PMOs take total control of the project, full control. The way it works in these PMOs is like the project manager's reporting would be directly to PMO here. Okay, in this kind of directive kind of PMOs. So the company has a pool of project managers and all of them report directly to PMO. That's how PMO is taking total control of the project. So they would direct the project manager. Okay, so that's how total control is taken. We call them as directive PMOs. Well, so these are the type of PMO we see in the industry. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about just last two terms. One, enterprise environmental factors, another organizational processes set. These are pretty much PMBOK terminology. Let's understand this. So to begin with, enterprise environmental factors, abbreviated as EEF. Let's understand this way. Look, projects are undertaken within an organization, right? So it's hence natural that project management would be influenced by the environmental factors of the performing organization, right? Now, the point is, which factors do we call as environmental factors? They note it down here. Take a look. These factors, we call them as environmental factors, like the culture of the company. I mean, the corporate culture. Structure to mean, we just studied that functional matrix, projectize, that structure. What governance framework do we follow as a company? Corporate level governance, quality, security, all sort of governance, risk. Yeah. Even the so even the resources we possess as a company. What resources do we possess? Where our offices are, what facilities do we have? So the infrastructure, the resources, what IT tools we use as a company. Yeah. These all put together we call as environmental factors. You got that? Culture, structure, governance, our infrastructure, resources, IT tools we use, put together are environmental factors. And we should also note one thing. In environmental factors, there are two types. The ones I just counted, these are all internal to the company. Your structure, your culture, your facilities, your people. Look at the other part. External. There are external environmental factors also, which should influence directly or indirectly. Like, let's take a look at these factors. Like the marketplace conditions you operate. That's also a factor, but that's not internal to your company. I'm sure you understand. The external market. Industry standards, statutory standards. Financial consideration means the interest rate and all in the market. Yeah. Safety, health, regulations, legal restrictions. These are also environmental factors, but they're pretty much outside of your company. So both of these, internal plus external, together we call them as enterprise environmental factors. I hope you also appreciate that these enterprise environmental factors are unique to an organization. Like your company's environmental factors would be very different than my organization's environmental factor. They're unique to a company. And lastly, why are we talking about it? See, the idea is because these factors would be influencing the way we would manage our projects. Many ways, directly or indirectly. All right. That's why we're talking about. As we start studying the processes in PMBOK, which we'll subsequently do, you will see as a pattern in PMBOK, in every initiation and planning process in PMBOK, you will see in the inputs, they will call out enterprise environmental factor. Meaning, PMBOK is saying, while project manager is performing that very process, whichever process it be, some planning process, let's say, it must take into account these enterprise environmental factors, because these factors can, somehow influence project management. That influence can be seen many ways. One example of simple influence, for example, they say one of the many environmental factors is we are a CMMI level 5 company. So this is a quality management system. Remember, one of the environmental factors is what industry standards you follow, like we follow CMMI or ISO or any other. This is one of them. Now, when I'm managing my project, look, I have to create some document that CMMI demands. As we have our CMMI processes defined. So because we are compliant with that, I have been mandated to create a document in my project. I would have otherwise not created much, but I have to because we are a CMM company, our processes demand that. So that's an example of how one of the environmental factors did influence the way you would manage project. This is just one example. You can see that in hundreds of these. Okay, I hope the term enterprise environmental factor is understood. If you have a question, you can let me know. Now, another thing, I just said you should take these into account right at the beginning of the project. Beginning of the project itself, you would study the enterprise environmental factors and you factor them while you're doing your project initiation and planning. But going ahead, we need to monitor these factors. Do you realize, especially the external ones, the external environmental factors could change? You remember these external ones? They could change during the course of the project. The marketplace could change. The financial considerations could change. New regulations coming in. I'm sure you understand. So there's a need to monitor them all through the project. Have you heard of these terms? PESEL, TechOp, VUCA. So what are these? These are actually prompts that we use to monitor the external environment. These are prompts. And in fact, these are also used as categories for risk identification. So when we go to risk management, we'll see these are like categories. So these prompts are helpful to analyze the external environment that could create risk, introduce uncertainty, or open up opportunities. So project managers should be vigilant of these environmental factors, okay, all through the project. And if we talk about these one by one, PESEL, here P stands for political, E is economical, social. Okay, there is a little mistake. I mean, they have been clubbed. This is social, C is socio-cultural. Okay, fine. Social or socio-cultural, you can say. Then there's technical, T for technical, L is legal, regulatory. The C is environmental. So we would be scanning the external environment to see any political changes, economic changes, all of these areas. Likewise, TechOp is another one, right? VUCA, have you come across this? This term is quite commonly used. VUCA world, we say. VUCA world is used to describe, it's an acronym, VUCA, which is used to describe this fast changing world. If you look at the individual terms, V stand for volatility, uncertainty, that's U, C is complexity, A is ambiguity. So rather than looking at each term individually, the point is VUCA world together, you view that as to describe the fast changing world. I'm sure you would agree. In today's world, very high level of volatility is there. You understand each of these terms, volatility to mean the speed and volume of change is immense, right? The level of uncertainty, predictability, is very less, and we are unable to see the future, far future. Complexity, the kind of products, services, solutions we build, quite complicated these days. Ambiguity means lack of clarity. Okay, so these are pretty high in today's world. So summarizing, the takeaway from here is a good project manager should be continuously monitoring the external environment for changes in this external environment. Not just at start, you obviously do that at the start, but throughout the project, you keep on analyzing any changes in the external environment. And accordingly, you would adjust your plans proactively, based on developments in the external environment. Look, your projection of benefits might change, isn't it? Yeah, new risks could come into picture. Technological changes might happen. These all could have huge implication on your project. So you have to be flexible and adapt your project accordingly. So that's the takeaway from here. One last term I'm going to talk about here, organizational process asset, abbreviated as OPA. Again, pretty much a PMBOK terminology. View OPA as a knowledge base. You look at this as a knowledge repository. All right, that's the right way of understanding. There are two parts of OPA can classify. One part of OPA is project-wide policies, procedures, templates. See, project-related process, template, procedures. This is one part. The other part is historical information, knowledge base. You understand historical data? So look, what I'm saying, whenever we start a new project, we would heavily rely on previous project data. Can you give me some examples? So what previous project data could be possibly helpful to plan my current project? Any examples? Would wait for your answers. I hope my question is understood. I'll repeat in the meantime. Simple question. What I'm saying, when I'm planning a new project, I would definitely go check, have we done a similar project in the past? If so, a lot of information from that previous similar project I could use to plan my current project. So what would be example of such previous project data that could be helpful? Yeah, let's see. Answers started coming in. Lessons learned. Yes, agree. Very good. Lessons learned. Yeah. Risk. Yes, risk encountered in the previous project. Very likely they would be applicable to the current project. Agree. A lot of people said lessons learned. True. Closer by PM. Didn't quite understand what is that. Decisions made. Even that. What decisions were made. Keep adding. Any other comes to your mind? Okay, somebody said fixed cost like infra team capability cost. In fact, yes, why not? When I'm estimating cost of my project, I would go check. We did a similar piece of work, or we use a similar kind of infrastructure we need this time as well. You can take previous project data for costing. All estimation, by the way. Somebody said budget. Absolutely. Time. When I'm estimating time, don't we use historic data? We heavily do that, right? Yeah. Process is followed. Okay. Technology is fine, but that's not project management related. So here I'm saying, when I'm saying previous project data, I'm more interested in project management related. Yeah. Approaches, methods, okay, that worked well. That's what is lesson actually. Agreed. Governance and documents for project quality execution. All right. Yeah, you pick up quality plans, other plans for previous project. Very well, thank you. You gave me a long list. So all this previous project data, I call as historic data, which is the second point. So that's what is OPA. So understand this way. So when I start my new project, I would heavily rely on organizational processes set or historic data. I'll use it extensively to plan my current project. And watch, when my project is about to be over later, I would give back to OPA. So all my project artifacts, lessons learned, risk and issues we encountered, all of these, we'll put it in a file and place it in OPA. Why? So that future projects could benefit out of it. So project managers would use this as input, and project managers would also contribute to OPA. Okay, that's the idea. And last thing, who would maintain this knowledge base? Who can maintain this knowledge base at an organizational level? What do you say?
PMO.
Yes, PMO is more suited. Yeah, that's what everybody said. Okay, yeah, PMO is more suited if there is a PMO. Very well. So this is all I had in the last part, organizational influences. So here we talked about certain organizational factors which could influence project management directly or indirectly. So that brings us to the end of chapter 1, which is business environment. I would pause. Anybody got a question on all of business environment we discussed as well? Any questions?
DJ, can you just high level give us an example of what sort of questions have been asked based on this?
Yes, I will give you. Go to chat now. Open the file.
Yeah.
These are the kind of questions. Okay. So everybody go to chat. Yes. I've shared a file which says BE questions. There are 10 questions on business environment that we're going to now do. I hope you're able to download the questions. I repeat, everybody, please go to chat. There is a file with the name business environment question. Please download that. If you want, I can put it in the recording folder also. Yeah, same one. I hope you could download that. Okay, let me open the file. There are 10 questions on this topic. We're going to do them right now. Yeah, this file. Okay, are we ready? So there are 10 questions, you see. So we'll do it this way. I'll give you 10 minutes. You please try them. mark your answers somewhere. After you have done, we'll have a discussion on this. Hope we are clear. Okay, so please try that. And we'll do a time check. You have 10 minutes to do this. Hope we are done with the questions. Yeah, let's look at the answers. Okay. So question number one. The question number one is pretty straight. That's what we call as a product life cycle. Yeah. So this is product life cycle. We spoke, be television or any product, right from concept stage till phase out, end to end. That's what we call as a product life cycle. I'll show you back in the slides where we learned this. In case you have some other answer, you can let me know. Here, look at this. Yeah, we spoke the whole thing, right from introduction, growth, maturity, retirement, the whole thing we call as product life cycle. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay, moving on then. Second one. Second question, this is also pretty straight. Here, authorized fund, simple. The only document that is used to seek funding approval is none other than business case. So if you recall, we studied yesterday, the purpose of business case is go, no go decision making or funding approval. That's what the question is all about. Did you struggle? Anything else if you got? Yeah, everybody says C. That's right. So first two questions were pretty straight. Number three, that's not straight.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes, Monica, go ahead.
To the question number two, when the project manager is already or is now assigned, then the business case must have already been done. So for the project manager, is it then not the task, or is it the task to do the project charter? So what is
answer
first,
to your
the
question,
egg or the chicken?
Yeah, good question. The answer to your question, you're absolutely correct. So first a business case is approved, then a project manager is assigned to initiate, generally. Okay. Another thing, if you recall, yesterday I stated one thing, who can create business case? And to that, there are multiple possibilities. I'll remind you, a business analyst can create, sponsor can create, project initiator can create, okay? A PMO can create, okay? Many people, and including project manager. I said that yesterday also. And when I said a project manager, you got to understand this way, the proposed project manager. You are right. So if the project is not approved, we won't undertake the project. So the proposed project manager may be asked to create a business case, basis which we take a decision. And the decision is no, we are not executing, forget it. If it is yes, then this PM would overtake and initiate the project. All right, that's the right way of looking at it.
Okay.
But why did you step in there? Does the question demand that to be known? I'm not sure. What is the question asking? Long story. Okay. Conclusion. Yeah. So who is Roger, by the way? Is it project manager? Roger, I don't know. Okay. Whoever it is, we don't know. That's not needed. But anyways, even PM could prepare it. All right. The proposed PM. Okay. Number three. Yeah, this is a good one. Here, watch. One team member raises a concern whether the component could be manufactured as per specification. And this is the clue. Head of engineering department decides to discuss the concern with head of manufacturing. See, what question is pointing out to is like this. We got head of engineering, a functional manager, head of manufacturing, another functional manager. Their teams are working on the project. All right. Their staff or teams are working. Okay. So like, look at it this way. These guys are on the project. Now somebody raised a concern. Let's say this guy raised a concern. Look, this team member could have raised it directly with the member from the other function. But did he do that? No, it didn't. Instead, what the question is saying, the head of engineering is discussing the concern with head of manufacturing. Meaning, what the question is pointing out to is that coordination for the project is happening at this level, at the functional manager's level. It is not happening within the team. If you could relate this, then the answer is easy. So try to recall, in which organization does it happen? That is coordination at the functional manager's level. Go back to my sheet. Here, you see it happens only in functional organization. Take a look. In functional organization is where coordination is happening at the functional managers level. While in others, be it matrix or projectize, it would be within the team. You see, coordination is happening within the team. So the fact that in this scenario, the coordination is happening at the functional managers level, it must be a functional organization. I hope you understand it, if not already. All right. Okay, so whoever said B, C, you should be now able to understand. If not, still let me know. I'll take it to 4 then. Predictive PMO is keen to introduce iterative. Okay. Picked up a pilot, one stakeholder has reservations on trying iterative approach and demands the project to continue to predictive. Okay, good question. You may see such in the exam. So one thing I would say, a simple logic is the exam is biased towards adaptive adoption. You can keep that in mind as a general rule. But anyways, even if you don't use that rule. So what I would do, will I roll back? No way. Just because somebody has a reservation doesn't mean I'll roll back. So what the best thing to do is, I'll go with delta here. He says, understand the concern of the stakeholder. That is, understand what reservation this guy has. All right. That's one thing. And second, educate the stakeholder on the benefits of iterative. Look, iterative being new, maybe the stakeholder doesn't understand the benefits and hence has, is resisting that. So if you educate the stakeholder on the benefits of iterative, the person would most likely understand and would agree. All right. So that would be the best way to handle this situation. Now, I would be very happy to see if you got to explain rather, not to see that you got a different answer. If you got some other, let me know. Okay, we can look into. And one rule for discussion, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you the right answer, justify and move on. But if you believe some other should be the right answer, please don't hesitate to state that. I'll be very happy to explain why some other is not the right answer. Okay. Okay. And another request to save time, please do not answer in chat, because I check every chat, so that wastes time. Don't answer. Only post it in chat if you got a different answer so that I address it. So I see on this question, most people said, hey, somebody asked why not A. Sure, I'll take up A now. Somebody asked why not A. Let's see, what is A? Refer, okay, why not A? So before I do, would anybody like to answer that? Why not A? Can somebody explain? I would love to hear anybody who can tell us why not A.
It's an escalation thing and not acting first from PM side.
Very good.
Unnecessary escalation, basically. When you can handle it at your level, you should try to handle it instead of escalating it to higher level.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just reiterate. I got the answer. Very nice. There are certain rules for PMP exam. Okay. Let's call them as PMIsms. Okay. PMIsms. So we'll have to learn this. Okay. So these rules would immensely help us in the exam. So like there are certain do's and don'ts. So one of the don'ts in the exam is, please remember, every challenge, issue, problem that occurs in the project is my responsibility as a project manager. I should first try to deal with it. Like here, what we have is we have a resistance, right? So any issue, resistance, problem, challenge you come across, remember as a rule, I would first try to resolve it without myself trying. If I go for D, A, refer to PMO, you are not justifying your responsibility. That's unnecessary escalation. And hence, A would not make an answer, not just here, in any of such questions. So please avoid answers such as A. Okay? While D, the right answer, is where you are addressing the situation. I repeat once again, in any such scenario, you first try. Let's say you tried, you failed, you want some advice, okay? Or next want to escalate, fine, that's okay. But without yourself trying, straight escalating is premature escalation, unnecessary escalation. Please don't forget this rule. This rule will cost you 10 marks, more than 10 marks in the exam. Hope you understand why not A. Somebody said B, I will look at B now. Find out team's preference, why not B? Look, team's preference. What does B mean? You go vote. Hey guys, what's your preferred method? Guys say we love predictive or we love agile. No, I won't adopt what guys prefer. In a project, I would adopt what methodology is suited or what the company's direction is. So that is why B is not a good answer. Not at all. So the choice of the methodology that we would apply should be as directed by PMO or by the organization or as suitable for the project. So B is not a logical way or a rational way to decide which method to adopt. So that's why B also doesn't make a good answer. I hope we understand. If anybody has any other say, do let me know before I move on. Reynolds says, engage first before making a sudden decision. Absolutely. Keep this rule in mind. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you something. Pay attention to the question discussion here. See the logic that I'm giving you right now here. These rules, I'll keep on sharing such do's and don'ts all through the training. They will immensely help you in the exam, I tell you. And these you would not find anywhere. Okay, I'm moving on to 5 now. 5 says we are adopting predictive, predominantly switch to agile. Okay, I had a coach approaches. Would you recommend? So this is an agile adoption. We had a slide on this. So 2 answers, right? So one I would pick up is B, suggest trying a pilot. Remember we spoke, it's always a good idea to try on a pilot before you go for an enterprise-wide rollout. That's one. The other answer I would pick up is, I would pick up C, educate stakeholders on agile. Look, whenever we are adopting anything new, be it agile here or any other, obviously people have to be trained, educated on that. Only then will they be ready to incorporate that change. So C is hence a very good idea. So B and C are good suggestions on agile adoption. If anybody got a different answer, you could point.
Yeah, I have a point here. So like in production or in main projects, going for a pilot project sometimes, or not only sometimes, but in most of the times, is not possible to go for a pilot project because we have
Why not?
deliverables.
Why not? Go ahead. Why not?
Because it has already been agreed with the customer that these things has to be done. So
where did customer come from? You are completely misinterpreting the question. So the point is,
okay, you tell, please.
See, the point is, okay, let's get the context. I'll allow you, Rajat. I'll allow you. So the point is, so there are, say, in our company, there are 10 projects, 20 projects going on. Now the company decides, we had been using predictive all these years, okay, ever since. But we would now like to move from predictive to agile or iterative, adaptive approach. This is the question. The company wants to move to adaptive ways of working. So now the question is, when we are adopting, will you go and apply agile in all 20, or you pick up one of these 20, one of them as a pilot, be successful in that project, and then roll out? That is the context. Back to you, Rajat. Speak up.
Okay,
please.
when we say pilot, it is a like, how can we take one project out of 20 and consider it as a pilot project?
Yes. And the question specifically comes from here. I'll show you where we learned this one. Transitioning to agile. So some good practices is go for hybrid, not a big bang. Go for a pilot, not an enterprise-wide rollout all at once. Okay, so this is what.
Okay, pilot means less risky project. I thought pilot means, okay, I got the point. Less risky project. It's fine. Okay, I got it. Thank you so much.
Anybody else has a say on 5? Welcome.
And one more thing, the only reason why D is, sorry to interrupt. So D is not correct because we are writing that encouraging senior leadership to host. But as an agile coach, I'll be hosting. That's why it is wrong, right?
That's correct. And just to add, ladies and gentlemen, we haven't studied what is daily scrum. So those who do not know agile would struggle here. It's okay. We will study at length why daily scrum. But if somebody answer daily scrum, if you answer this one, I'll tell you why not. In fact, Rajat has already answered. Senior leadership is not welcome in daily scrum. They are not attendees. Forget hosting, they're not attendees even. That is why D is an incorrect suggestion on agile. That is why D is not the right answer. But I tell you, We haven't studied D yet, so if you didn't know, it's okay. Somebody, Divansi, you're saying something, is it?
Yes, yes. So actually, after listening to Rajat question, one thing came to my mind. But the question says that this is for organization. Now, what happens is, supposedly, I'm from an IT services company, right? So
Okay.
in IT services, we get projects from customer. Now, customer might be following the agile practices, but for my team, let's say they have never worked on agile, so it will be a big bang for them, for my team, but not for customer, because we have to adopt that approach and work on that particular methodology. This is something that I wanted to share.
Fine, but where does it lead us?
No, so I'm saying that this thing is also is there, right? But the question here is for organization. That's what I was saying, but after the discussion, I realized that thing.
Okay, as long as you understand. Anybody has any other say on 5? Else I'll move on. Okay, 6 then. 6, organization decided to transition again. They decided pilot teams for, oh, look, interesting. Team performance has greatly dropped and senior management demands the project to roll back to predictive. Let's pause here. Now, what I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, whenever we are adopting something new, be it agile or anything, so it's quite obvious that there'll be a temporary decline in productivity because people will take some time to learn, okay, get accustomed to the new ways of working or new system. So it's no surprise. And somebody who is concerned about a temporary decline will never adopt anything new. So this is no surprise. We should be prepared for that. So that is no reason to roll back. So the answer I'm going to pick up here is B. Check out. Newly formed teams need some time to stabilize and should be allowed some time to reach peak performance. Absolutely. So this is a normal thing, and that is no reason to roll back. That's my say. If anybody got a different answer, please let me know. Hey, anybody for C as in Charlie or any other? Anybody answered C? We'll look at C certainly. Let me check chat first.
I have said C.
Yeah, okay, B is correct. Somebody said C. Fine. You know what? This is what makes the exam difficult. Why not C? Look, I'll tell you why not C. What is C, by the way? Seek external support to navigate the transition effectively. I tell you something, C is so very popular. In fact, any organization, when they adopt Agile, they would get a pool of consultants working in their organization for 6 months or even longer, helping their teams to navigate the transition, which is so very common. Agile consulting. We are into that business, we know. So it's a very good idea, for adoption. But still, C is not the right answer. Why? Look, you have to understand this way. C doesn't address the stance in the question. Let's go back to the question. What is the stance in the question? Productivity has dropped, so let us roll back. This is the stance of the question. Now, C is a good parallel suggestion for adoption, but C doesn't address that. Hence, it is not the right answer. But B straight addresses the stance in the question. B, the right answer, explains that this decline in productivity is natural and we should wait. So it does talk about it. But C simply doesn't talk about the stance in the question. It is just a parallel suggestion, good one, but not addressing the concern in the question. Hence, not a better answer over B. This is the rationale.
But Devash, the teams is earlier working on a predictive approach, but now they are like working with the adaptive. So they need some time. So instead of like wasting some time to stabilize them, if we have the external support to like upgrade or educate them with the adaptive approach, so it will be like faster and less like cost. It will be a cost effective.
My say Mahindra, I heard you. Even if you get consultant, this is going to happen. No matter you get the best consultant on earth, every team would take some time to, a decline is bound to happen. All right. So getting consultation doesn't remove that. Team would always take some time to get adapted. C can only help in the journey, but doesn't help. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but if we have some external support to the team to educate them, then it will be faster to adopt the adaptive approach rather than let them to.
Agreed, faster.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed, it would be faster. But where does he say? Does it say that by getting external support, we could reduce or make it faster or reduce?
No, but to navigate the transition effectively, it says. So the transition will be effective if we get the external support.
So once again, my stance is still there. I'm saying you're missing one thing. C is not incorrect. So please note, PMP exam is not about right or wrong options. In every question, there'll be more than one right answer. Remember something. In every question, or rather, 80% of the questions would have more than one right answer. You get a credit if you answer the most appropriate one. Most appropriate one. This is the point. Okay, so go back to the question. So C, I again tell you, it's not wrong. So why is B less better than C? So I again repeat, why C is not a better answer over B is C is not talking about the stance in the question. C is not explaining the situation in the question. C just a good parallel suggestion, a good practice. It is not explaining the stance. While B directly explains the stance, and hence it is a better answer. That's all justification that exists. Okay, so you would not agree on some, and that is bound to happen. And because all our, our interpretation would be different, it would be influenced by our experiences, by our comprehension. So there'll be some differences, no matter how much it is explained. So stay with it. Try to understand, why it is not the right answer. I told you that's the only reason. It doesn't explain the stance, B does. Okay, I'll move on to 7 now. 7, another very good question. Here, C or D, which is better answer? What did you pick?
C.
Okay. The right answer here is C as in Charlie. Many people would think about D. If you got any other, let me know. I'll look at all of them. Let me first justify C. Okay. Any other we can look at. And the reason, watch, new country is the most important information. That reminds me, ladies and gentlemen, you have to be very careful in catching the keywords in the question. Keywords. So in this particular question, new country is the most important keyword. Now watch, when we're entering a new country, all right, and question is what is the first thing you would do? Okay. And that also reminds me something. When you see the word first, so remember, here they say first, elsewhere they would say next. Whenever the last line of the question says first action or next action, that means they're asking you what is the next immediate step. They're not only asking the best answer, they're asking the next immediate step, remember. Okay, coming to the question now. When we're entering a new country, do you realize, you remember the term EF we just spoke, enterprise environmental factors. And enterprise environmental factors are two types, internal and external we studied. I'll just take you back to the slide that we studied these factors. Take a look. Here, there are internal and external. So when we enter a new country, the internal factors won't be much different. Our culture, our structure, our tools primarily would remain the same. Okay, but do you realize these external factors would be completely new to you when you go to a new country? The marketplace condition in the new country, the statutory, legal restrictions, political, climate, public health, safety, these all would be very, very new. So identifying risk associated with these external EFs of the new country becomes far more important than any other option. Let me come back. That's what C says. Analyze the external EFs and identify risk associated with that. So this becomes more important because of new country. That's for C. Let's check out why not delta. If somebody thought about delta D, what is D? Refer OPA for lessons. You do that in any project you do. But you know why D is not more appropriate than C? You won't have much of learnings. It's a new country. So that's why learnings, there won't be as much of learning. So D becomes lesser important Okay, then see the right answer because of a new cut. Now I'll see if you got any other answer. Something in chat. Yeah, everybody said C to this. Any takers for A, B, you can let me know, or any other view. Okay, agree? Then we look at 8 now. Yeah, good one. This one here. Towards completion of the project, many team members strive to gather information about ongoing and to be started project. Watch. This is enough for me to say it is a project-oriented organization. How? I'll explain. Okay, watch. Come back. We just studied the structure. Look, in functional organization and even in matrix, in both matrix and functional, what happens is every resource belongs to a function. Say, you look at, say, let's say this resource, this staff, this team member. What would happen to this team member after the project is over? It will go back to the function. See, understand, function is like the home of the resource. So every resource in a matrix or functional organization, they belong to a function. The function is like home, right? They come work on a project for a while. Once the project is done, they'll go back to their home, back to their function. And what do they do next? The functional manager would decide. Functional manager is like the parent. Okay. So now come to projectized. Take a look. Think about this resource. When the project will be over, what happens to this resource? You see, in projectized or project oriented, there is no function. So this guy doesn't have a home. So here resources are homeless. They're homeless. So what happens to this resource after the project? Please self-mute. Okay. So when the project is about to be over, this resource has two places to go. Where one, join another project. If there is one to accommodate this guy, or two, go to bench. You understand bench, right? So classic drawback of project-oriented organization is security, job security. So it's a classic drawback. When a project is about to be over, all these guys in this project, they will be wondering, is there another project to accommodate us? If not, we go to bench. But the same is not the case in functional or matrix, because here the resources know, where do I go next? Back to my function. So from the fact that people are trying to find out what other projects are going to start, it must be projectized. Had it been functional or matrix, this concern wouldn't have been there. Okay. I hope you already understood this, or at least now understand. Let me know if you still have some say. So in case you were not aware, please.
I was not sure. So hello?
Yes, Monica, go ahead.
A and B because I was not sure. So can you explain me what is
Why not B?
Informal organization?
Sure, I will explain.
What is that?
There's nothing such on earth. There's no such organization known as informal. So one type of question in PMP exam, we call them as framed terminology. You know what is framed terminology? In the exam, you will find that there will be terms in the options that do not exist on earth, at least not in PMBOK. They have been fresh cooked up for you to lose a mark. So don't go for them. So like this one, there is no such structure known as informal. Okay? Yeah.
Okay. Good.
All right. Number 9 then. 9 is a very easy question, which is not a constraint. You understand what's a constraint? Constraint is any limitation, any restriction. So I would go with C. C is what? CEO wants a progress report every fortnight. That's just a communication need. That's not a restriction or a limitation. But all others, A, B, D, they are classic examples of constraints. Did you answer anything else? A, fixed budget is a constraint. You have to deliver within $1 million, let's say. B, a deadline. That's a time constraint. Delta, suitable vendor. Only one vendor. So vendor has monopoly. That is a constraint. You don't have options. You have to go with that vendor. So these all are classic example of constraint, but C is not. C is just a communication need. Hope you're with me. All right, the last one, 10. Good one. What did you answer here? B or C?
B. Conduct a cost
B
benefit.
is the right answer. B is the right answer. Before I move on, Utsav, you said B for this one or some other question? You had asked B. I missed that. You can let me know the question number.
I asked that for question number 7.
Sure, I will go back to 7B, okay? So one request, when you do that, please add the question number. It would be easy. I'll go back, nobody. But let's finish off 10 first. Yeah, so here B is the right answer. So question is straight. There's an open source option that you have. If you go for that, it will reduce the cost. But at the same time, there is a concern about quality security. So how the question look? How can you make a decision? That's the question. Okay, why not C, by the way, here? Will we look at that also? Why not C? I'll start with why not C. Okay, why not C? Invite a SME to decide. Why not C? I'll give you 2 reasons. Okay, one, you are not deciding. See, look at the last line of the question. You have to be very careful. See, PMP exam, that reminds me something. I'll go back to the question later. Please note, it's not about knowledge. Very interesting to note. Let's say somebody gets 50 questions incorrect in the exam. Understand some statistics. You will find out of 50, 10 or less than 10 would be due to knowledge. I mean, you didn't have the knowledge to answer the question. Less than 10, I tell you, less than 10. What about the other 40 or plus, more than 40? Is interpretation issue. You could not interpret the question or the options. Yes, you will realize that. This, I'm telling you the stats. So why am I pointing out? That's so very much required. If somebody is not making in the exam, most likely 95% is not due to knowledge. It's because of interpretation. Right? So that is why we'll have to learn the art of interpreting PMP questions. Yeah, very important. Let me come back. So here, look at the last line of the question. The examiner, what it wants, how can you make a decision? That's what the examiner. So the examiner is asking you, tell us a way to decide. What would be a good way to decide in this scenario? But C is like, I don't decide, SME decide. You're running away. Bad idea. C is not a way, and see somebody else doing, you're not doing. So that is why I don't like C at all. Why B the right answer? Let's see why. Conduct a cost benefit analysis to compare the cost savings with the potential risk. Yeah, that is a very scientific way to decide. Compare how much of saving versus what is the risk that it introduces. So the saving is $10. It introduces a lot of risk. I better not adopt that. However, the saving is $500,000. And there's an amount of risk. Is it worth it or not? So B would be a scientific way to decide what would be a good idea. So B presents a way and a nice scientific way. I would prefer that. So that's how B and not C. Anybody has any other say on 10 is welcome. Any other say? Okay.
BGS, to come so late. On the 9th question, I missed the explanation on D, like why D is not the correct answer. And C
okay, I look at 9D. In the meantime, Vikas says in what case PM takes subject? Yeah, you consult SME. So answer to your question. Consult SME, you're most welcome. Yes, PM can consult an SME, but don't run away. C is like you're not consulting. Invite SME to decide. SME decide, you don't decide. You have no role to play. You hand over decision making to SME. Not acceptable. But had you said, I would decide taking inputs from CME, that's fine. I hope I answered the question, Vikash. Okay, going back to 9D. Somebody said 9D. Okay, whoever asked, I have a question. What is the meaning of constraint? As per you, what is constraint? To answer that, you should know what is constraint.
Constraint is something like blocking the progress.
No, sorry, you don't have the definition, so you won't get it right. So what is a constraint?
Limitation.
It's a limitation, a restriction. Any limitation, restriction is known as a constraint, right?
Yeah.
So I tell you, you have to deliver in 4 months. That's a constraint. I give you a budget, 50,000 is all you have. You won't have a penny more to deliver. That is a constraint. I give you these three guys is all you have in your team. You won't get a fourth one. That is a constraint. Any limitation is a constraint. I tell you, you have to, your product must align with this standard, some market standard. That is a constraint, any limitation. Now, there is one vendor in the market. Don't you see as a constraint? So the work is something that would actually cost 50,000. Imagine. But because there's one vendor, no competition, this vendor is charging you 150,000. You can't help it. You have to go with that. If there were three vendors in the market, there would have been competition. You would have got a better price. You could have negotiated. But how do you negotiate with this guy? This guy would say, hey, you don't want to pay 150K, get lost. You can't do anything. You don't have a choice. So having one vendor is a big limitation. So that is why D is not the right answer. Hope you understand it.
Which of the following cannot be considered as a constraint?
Somebody said 7B, is it? I'll take up. Yeah, I have a request. Please, that's why I'm saying right answer, please don't post. Because these are other queries are lost. Okay, so yeah. So I'll go to 7B. Okay, 7 was, what is the first thing you would do? Okay, B, develop a plan. Or you're setting up a new country, right? B, develop a project plan and seek approval of project sponsor. I'll give you 2 reasons why B is not correct. Listen carefully. You have to build that mindset, ladies and gentlemen. Develop a plan and get it approved by sponsor. Tell me which damn project don't do. I repeat, tell me in which project will you not perform what is stated in B. Is B any news? B is no news to me. No matter what project, I will prepare a plan and get it approved by sponsor. Every project we do. Tell us what specifically you did in new country. Nothing. So I hate B. That's one reason. I give you a second reason also. Second reason. What is the first thing you would do? A plan would come later. First, initiate the project. You prepare the plan in the planning stage of the project. There's a lot of work you would do before the planning is done, before you create a plan. So that's the second reason why B is not the right answer. I hope you understand.
DJ, I had one reservation regarding this. I had the thought that first we will prepare a project plan, and only after that we will go for identification of an external EEF.
Very mistaken. Very mistaken you are.
No, so that to know which EEF shall affect my plan. Or there may be some EEF which
what will you do knowing? You have already planned. Gentlemen, Utsav, what will you do knowing? After you prepare the plan, then you know which EF would affect. What is the fun? What is the fun? You have already developed the plan. So you should first understand the EF, then plan. Plan is later. I would say first, after understanding this, you initiate the project. You prepare, we are yet to learn initiation. There are certain documents prepared. You prepare charter and all. You prepare vision and all. After that, you will go to plan. After planning, looking at this is no use. That's why we said at the very beginning, you should identify EF. And thereafter, continue monitoring the business environment. So first time you would analyze it.
So are we going to study in a later stage during the initiation of the plan, or what do we need to do before planning? I mean, identifying the EF before planning are we going to study that in later on?
That's the next topic. Initiating, we'll understand what is it that we do in initiation. All right. But just a moment, since you said that. Just a moment. Just opening PMBOK to show you something. Okay. I will explain the structure of PMBOK to you later. I would do that. So please understand, you look at this table. Okay, let's take a look at this table for now. This is the process table for PMBOK. Everybody take a look at this. The process structure, let's understand. PMBOK talks about 5 focus areas. You see, these are the 5 focus areas. Follow the cursor, initiating. Some people call it as process group. because earlier versions of PMBOK actually called them as process group, but the 8th edition called them as focus areas. It's a name change. Initiation, then planning, we got execution, monitoring, and closing. All right. And the first column on the left, what are these? These are termed as performance domains. There are 7 of them. Okay. So earlier they used to call these performance domains as knowledge areas. Some people may be comfortable, so I use the word knowledge areas. But in the new edition, they call them as performance domain. These are actually domains. These are the areas of knowledge a project manager should have. Take a look. What are the ones? We'll study all of them, not to worry. Governance, scope, schedule. So PM has to manage scope, manage schedule, manage finances, stakeholder, resources, risk. These are the 7 performance domains. And within the table you see here, there are total of 40 project management processes that 8th edition of PMBOK talks about. Total 40. We'll be studying them all, by the way. Okay. And they have been depicted in this table. So what this table shows is, it shows the mapping. Look, every process, all of these 40, they would belong to some focus area and some performance domain. For example, let me take one example. Let's say estimate cost. This happens to be one of the 40 processes. The fact that it is under the column heading planning, you see, that means it belongs to the focus area planning. And the fact that it pertains to the row finance, that means it belongs to the performance domain finance. So likewise, every process would belong to some performance domain and some focus area. So this mapping has been shown in this table. Okay. I just wanted to show you this. Understand this mapping? And now if you take a look at initiation, let's take a look at initiation focus area. Out of 40, watch, there are only 2 processes in initiation. Which are those? Initiate a project or phase. We are going to learn it now. Next topic is initiate. And where is the second one? Identify stakeholder. These are only 2 processes we perform as part of initiation of any project. While planning, I'll just clean it up. Planning has maximum number of processes, you see. Maximum of them are in planning. Yeah. I just wanted to show you this mapping. Likewise, in execution, monitoring, closing, you find. So, by the way, I did show you this table. Do you need to remember this mapping? No, not at all. Don't waste any time in memorizing. There'll be no such question in the exam which would ask you which focus area or which performance domain the process belongs to. There'll be no such direct question. But it's good to know. It's good. It's a good checklist for you. Very good checklist. You should know what all things we do in initiation, what in planning, and so on. Okay, we'll be learning them all. So before I move on, anybody got a question on this table? If you have, feel free to ask. Good, yeah. Just wanted to give you the structure. Initiate project office. Now, next thing. That's the table. This is showing you from PMBOK. One moment. Look, I have gone here for you, Saf. Watch. Just to show you one thing. This is the first process. Yeah, look at this. This is the first process that we are going to implement any project, initiate or a project phase. I did show you in the map. You saw that? Look, once again, you see the table.
Yes.
And and why did I get here? Watch, one of the inputs. See, for this process, PMBOK gives the list of inputs, tools, and techniques and output. See, one of the inputs is, you see that? Preparing plan would come much later. So you refer to enterprise environmental factor during initiating itself, far before you develop the plan. Understand? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, any other say? Else we'll move on with initiation. By the way, getting questions wrong is absolutely fine for now. You please get them wrong. But more important is we should understand where did we go wrong, so that next time we don't repeat that mistake.
Actually, from where we can get more questions so that we can do practice and clear our understanding.
Very good. You don't clear understanding by doing questions, by the way. You clear understanding by reading the PPTs, reading PMBOK. You don't have to. Okay, that's one thing. But more questions, of course, you need more questions, not for understanding, but to practice, check your level.
Yeah, practice because
I'll give you
we can
1,000
clarify
questions
with you. Yeah, correct.
Understand. 1,000 question, I'll give you access to. No, I told you. But then this is not the right time to practice. So currently you understand. So after you are done with the training, you have studied one round, then you will be practicing more and more questions. I'll give you 1,000 question access. All right.
I have a quick question.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So DJ, I was asking what is the percentage of multiple answers question in the exam, if you have the idea?
No, because PMI doesn't provide a breakup. PMI doesn't provide a breakup. So
because that has a higher chance of mistakes. That's why I was asking.
So don't worry, there'll be ample so that you lose marks. So here is the breakup. See the type of questions: 1, classic multiple choice, multiple response, matching, and point of click. I'll give you some rough idea since you asked. There is no breakup. PMI doesn't provide a breakup, but I must tell you something. First of all, I'll start with this. Point and click, how many? 2-3 questions. Only 2 to 3 questions. Watch. Let me clean it so that you can record it. Yeah. So point and click is just 2 or 3 questions only. Matching could be 5 to 6 questions. 5 to 6 matching. So these two are very less. You can see, total 180. So maximum questions are of the first two. Classic MCQ and multiple response. Both are good numbers. But ask me which is more. This is more. That is one single right answer, A, B, C, D. One of them being right answer is what is classic MCQ. This is more than multiple response. But then multiple response is still ample. Not the highest in weightage, but it's ample in number. This is all I can tell you. Exact breakup
and partial marking as well. Like for multiple, suppose we have to choose 2 and we choose 1 correct and 1 incorrect.
No partial mark, 0 or 1. Okay, 0 or 1. So you are not the only one. Everyone hates multiple response. Okay, yeah, can't help. Right. Good. Shall we proceed then with initiation? Okay, let's do. So we start now initiating a project. Here you go, the takeaways from this topic. We'll start with something called a project vision. A small topic. I'll explain what is vision. Thereafter, we'll talk about preparing something called a project charter. Many of you may have come across this artifact charter. If you haven't, not to worry, we'll anyway speak. Then I'll touch upon key roles in a project. You see what roles are needed in a project. And lastly, we'll talk about a process known as identify stakeholder. So we'll see what all things we do in this process. So these are the topics we have in initiation. Let's get started with the first one. Defining vision. Okay, what is a vision? Watch. Vision, look, every project would take us from some as-is state or current state to a to-be state. This to-be or future state, right? I'm sure you would agree. The project always takes us from some current state to a future or to-be state. Vision, the best way to understand vision is a snapshot. It's a snapshot of this to-be state. That's what is a vision. Vision describes this to-be state. It describes, call it a snapshot, call it a description of this future state. That's what it does. And you know how big a vision would be? We say vision statement. So vision is not a 50-page document. No. Vision would be written in a paragraph or so. It is a one paragraph. Very crisp. You define, the future state in a vision. Why short, because vision should be like memorable. Easily, it should be memorable. Let me show you. Now I'll talk about a few points about the vision statement. So when you are crafting a vision statement, okay, a few traits of a good vision statement, watch. First of all, I said it's a brief. Why brief? I told you paragraph, like it's very brief. And vision is always written it should be aspirational when you create a vision statement. Aspirational to me, it should be a promising future. Does it need to be aspirational? To understand that, you got to understand what is the purpose of business, the vision. What is the most important purpose of vision statement? It is used to sell the project. Yes, I meant that. A vision statement is used to attract as many stakeholders as possible. So it should be a promising future. If it is a weak one, it won't attract or motivate the stakeholders. That is why you create a compelling vision. Aspirational, promising, compelling, whatever you call it. Hey, at the same time, doesn't mean you go and make a false promise to make it compelling. It should be actionable. I mean, something that we can achieve definitely. So the how aspirational, of course, would depend on the degree of transformation the project is going to bring forth. But we always try to make it aspirational. Okay. At the same time, it should be actionable. Linked to corporate goals. What does that mean? A vision statement should clearly state how does this project or product help achieve some corporate strategic goal. I'm sure you would appreciate every project that we undertake within an organization should somehow help directly or indirectly to achieve some corporate strategic goal. Right? It does. We'll state that. So vision should link it. Okay. So these are a few traits about a vision statement. Now I'll do something. Let me show you a sample so that you get a better feel of what a vision statement would look like. Okay. Here's a sample we'll read. Before you start reading, let me give you the project context in one line. The project is we are going to install smart water meters. So we'll install smart water meters in every household. And these water meters are going to measure the water usage. And basis that, billing and all can be done. This is the context. All right. Now, you please take a minute to read the vision statement on the screen yourself. I'll wait. Please read it. Hope you have read it. If you have something to ask, you may, but before that, I'll point out a few things. Okay. So remember, I said the vision statement should be aspirational, compelling one, promising future. Look at this one. One of kind. We're going to build a one of kind integrated system. That's a bold promise. Okay. A compelling one. And then I made another point about the vision statement, if you remember, linked to corporate strategic goal. That is, the vision statement should clearly indicate which corporate strategic goal is going to be fulfilled by this project. It does. Read with me here, contributing towards becoming a water smart economy. In the context, this is the strategic goal. This project will help us become a water smart economy. All right. That's another trait of a good vision statement. And although this was not stated, another point about vision statement, let me make now. A vision statement does position our product. A vision statement should state how our product is different than others in the market. It should do. Look at the last line. It has been done. Read with me. Conventional water meters. Look, there are already conventional water meters available in the market, but the ones we are coming up with smart ones, not conventional ones. So we are saying conventional water meter is a misfit due to a lot of reasons, like inappropriate designs, compromising on the aesthetics of the apartment, manual intervention needed to take readings and all, and hence high maintenance cost. So see, these are all drawbacks. So that's how our smart water meters will overcome all of these challenges. And that's how the conventional ones are no match to our smart water meters. So this is an example of a vision statement. I hope you got a feel. If somebody has a question to ask on vision statement, please stop me right now. Good. Okay. So who would create a vision statement? Ideally, it could be the sponsor or the executive committee would create. If it is an agile environment, okay, we haven't talked about roles in agile. I introduce you to the roles in agile shortly. But some of you might know product owner. If it is an agile kind of environment, we do have a role known as product owner. I'll speak a lot about the role subsequently. So please get to know these are candidates who can create the vision statement. So you remember I said it is used to sell. It's a powerful motivation tool. We use the vision statement to motivate as many stakeholders as is possible, to have the buy-in of stakeholders. This is the purpose of vision statement. So at the onset of a project, we would be preparing a vision statement. And this may not be a single person's job. Many times you create a visioning workshop. A workshop could be created with the sponsor, other key stakeholders getting together. They conduct a workshop and then craft a vision statement. Okay, that's the first thing we would do. I would move on. If somebody has a question on vision, you can stop me still. Well then, now let's understand how do we initiate a project, okay, as per PMBOK. Now, before I tell you that I will tell you, but let me ask a question. How are projects formally authorized in your organization? See, what I mean to ask here is that every organization would have some kind of a process, a formal way to kickstart a project. In other words, what doesn't happen in any organization is anyone who wishes to start a project go start. Shouldn't happen, right? That would be a mess. The organization should have a process to ensure that projects are, authorized in a controlled manner. So I would like to hear from some of you whoever would like to volunteer to speak, to understand what's that formal process you follow in your company. Go start a project, to initiate a project. Anybody would like to share?
Sure, DJ, I would like to.
Please go ahead.
So in our organization, the process that they follow is we do have a kickoff meeting wherein all the stakeholders, including the sponsor, has been invited to that meeting. They do share the vision, as you mentioned, or the purpose or the agenda of the project. They make everyone understand in that room why they have choose this project and what are the expectations. Then we have a formal introduction of the everyone present in the meeting, and that is how we start with the particular project.
Very well, Santosh. Thanks for sharing a kickoff meeting. Anybody else follows a different practice? Yeah.
Yes. What exactly is meant by formally authorized?
That is kickstart work on a project. Initiate a project.
So it means that it is already been approved, budget, everything is there, right?
Yeah. Business case is approved. Now you need to start a project. So what is the process?
Okay. Fine. Thank you.
Anybody else follows a different practice would like to share? Now? All right, then let me take over. Now I'll tell you what PMBOK is. The answer to this question from PMBOK perspective, the answer is by preparing a project charter. Is the answer to the question. By preparing a project charter and issuing that to the project manager. I'll elaborate, but that's the PMBOK answer, please understand. Okay, so let us understand. Look, you may not be following the same practice. I've seen every organization is its own internal way, which varies immensely from organization to organization, right? But PMBOK says this one. Let's understand this artifact known as project charter. I'll start with that. Take a look at the contents of charter first. Okay, even before content, the timing. When is the charter created? Look, charter is the first thing. This is process number 1. See, I told you in PMBOK there are 40 processes, 40. Ask me which is the first one to be performed in a project. It is this. The name of the process is this: initiate project or phase, and the outcome of this process is a project charter. I'm speaking about that. So the timing is here. The first thing you do in a project is prepare a charter right at the beginning of the project. That's time. Now let's take a look at the contents next. These are typical contents of a charter. We would capture what is the project purpose justification. So this is the answer to the question, why are we undertaking the project? Hey, would you remember We saw that in business case yesterday. The purpose was stated. Yes, that's right. You take it from there. You're not reinventing the wheel. This you copy from the business case and write in one line. You're doing the project to solve this problem or this opportunity, whatever. Next, project objectives. Look, objective is the success criteria of the project. So you would define a set of objectives that we need to achieve. All right. Objective could be around timelines, around budget, around quality levels, whatever means success. You define them as objectives. So project should complete in 10 months, or it should be done within a budget of this $1 million. Yeah, these are like objectives. And also take a note of this. You define the objectives. You say these are 4, 5, 6, as many objectives. Now, at the end of the project, on the last day, we would measure success of the project basis these objectives. If the objectives are met, that would indicate the project is successful. If they're partially met, that's partial success. You do not meet them at all, that would be no success. So those objectives we state, define in the charter. Next, high-level requirement. Requirements, but point to be noted, high level. Please be clear. Detailed requirement gathering is a part of planning. Initiation is too early to know the requirement, but some high-level requirement, we are going to capture in the charter. Bird's eye view. Just in bullet points, you can write it. Okay, requirements. Key deliverables. Before I move on, what's something? Charter has a lot of information, you see, but everything is high level. Most of these would be detailed in the planning stage. After initiation, we'll start the planning stage. I hope you understand. That's where we will be defining. Like requirements, same way, deliverables. Look, we don't want the laundry list of deliverables here. Just state these are 3, 4, 5 key or major deliverables in the project. Those can be defined in the charter. Then time and cost. Same thing. If you ask me, when is the detailed schedule developed in a project? That's planning stage. When do you put up a budget? Again, planning. Initiation is too early. But some rough estimates, some ballpark estimates, we will have in the charter for time and cost. You can put it in ranges also. Like for timelines, you say 10 to 12 months. Yeah, it could be this way also. We don't know a precise one. So some rough time and cost estimates we would have even in the charter. Next, macro level risk or major risk. Same story. When are we going to identify risk? Do we identify risk in initiation? No, that's too early. Risk identification is a part of planning. We'll study later. Okay. So, but some major ones, is quite obvious or likely that some major risk you may be already aware of during initiation. So it's a good idea to capture them here in charter so that these are not lost. Later, when we move to the planning stage, we'll identify many more risks. All right. Yeah. Then assumptions and constraints, but same thing. Add the word major assumptions, major constraints. Once again, major detailed assumptions and constraints, we would identify them in the planning stage. But during initiation, it is quite likely that some major assumptions, constraints, you may be already aware of. So we can capture them in the charter. All right. Next, key stakeholders. Same thing. We don't want the laundry list of stakeholders here. There could be stakeholders when we talk about that. It's a pretty long list. But here we talk about these are 3, 4, 5 highly influential or key stakeholders. Only those can be mentioned in the charter. Next, approval requirement. Here you say, who would approve what? Who will major approvals lie with? For example, who approves the requirements in the project? Who approves the budget? Who would approve the schedule? Who would approve change requests thereafter? Such major approvals. Who will they lie with? Mostly with a role known as sponsor, but there could be other guys. Okay, so you state that under approval requirements. Next, name a project manager. Look, this is the right time to appoint the project manager. So during initiation is when we should preferably appoint the PM. So PM is identified and name is written. Okay, Alex is the proposed project manager. We're going to state that in the charter. And also the sponsor. Look at a key role. In fact, this document is approved by who would approve project charter. The role that approves charter is known as project sponsor. Please get that right. Who would create? I'll tell you in a while. But the approver of this document is sponsor. Okay, let's speak a little bit about sponsor, this role. You must have heard of that. Every project would need sponsorship. I would say sponsor would be somebody from senior management at a level higher than project manager. Look, project manager we say is mid-level management, while sponsor has to be at a level higher, senior management, I would say. And in any project, project manager's reporting is to the sponsor by default. And if we talk about major responsibilities, okay, before that, in one word, I would say sponsor provides overall direction to the project. So if you ask me what does a sponsor do, it provides overall direction to the project. In one word, okay? It doesn't do day-to-day management. Day-to-day management is the responsibility of project manager. Sponsor would provide overall direction. Let me count that. Let me count detailed responsibilities of sponsor. Watch, these are some. All major approvals with the sponsor, approving the schedule, budget, other approvals, sponsor would do. Next, major decisions, all major decisions would be with the sponsor. Small ones, you could leave it to the project manager to make, but any major decision, sponsor is going to make. More, arranging funds, whose responsibility is arranging funds for the project? Sponsor, very clearly. All right. More, sponsor would participate in major reviews in the project, not in your weekly team meetings. We don't want major reviews, end of phase reviews, milestone reviews, and all. Sponsor would join. Also note, sponsor is responsible to provide needed resources to the project manager. Yeah, sponsor should back the project manager, support the project manager. Also note, any escalation. If me as a PM, I'm not able to resolve some issue with the given authority, who do I reach out to? Any issue. I'm not getting resource, I'm not getting cooperation or anything. So who will I reach out to? Please note, sponsor. Sponsor is the single point of escalation for the project manager. For any issue is not able to resolve with given authority. Yeah. So that role I'm talking about is sponsor. I hope you got a feeling of what a sponsor is responsible for in a project. And that's the role who is going to be approving the charter. You would now like to know who prepares the charter. For that, there are multiple possibilities, by the way. I'll note down. Possibilities are project manager prepares the charter. PM can be asked to prepare. Possibility number 2, sponsor prepares. Sponsor directly prepares. Can happen. Could be a joint effort also. PM and sponsor sitting together and preparing charter. Could be a possibility. Third possibility, PMO, Project Management Office. So these are possibilities when it comes to creating the project charter. I say so many possibilities because there's no one thing that is seen across. Okay, all of these are seen in some organizations, PM, somewhere sponsors, somewhere PMO. But here PMBOK says something I would add. Project manager should be preferably part of charter creation. It's preferable. That is, it can always happen that PM was not involved, sponsor directly created, but that's not preferable. Preferably is PM should participate in charter creation. All right. I think I'll tell you more, but before that, let me pause. So far, I told you what's contained in the charter. We saw. We also understood who prepares and who approves. Is there a question by now, especially on contents? Good. Then I'll add on. Feel free if you have a question. Post it in the chat as well. Yeah. So I'll add on then. Yeah. If you look at the contents of charter, you see there are lots of things we state in the charter. All critical information is there in the charter. Time, cost, risk, deliverable, assumption, constraint. A lot of them, stakeholders. But did you note everything is high level in the charter? Because at this stage, none of these would be known in details. These all we would detail in the planning stages. So it's all critical information that we have in charter. And would you like to take a guess how big a document would charter be? How big? I mean, number of pages, if I ask you. How big should it be? Let's see
2 to
something
3
in
pages.
chat. 2 to 3 pages. Okay,
2
I
to
heard
3
that.
pages.
Okay, that's good. 2 to 3 pages is good. Some people call it as a 1-pager. I mean, make it 2, 3 is okay, but for sure it's not a huge document. Please note. Okay, because why? Because look at the contents. Everything is high level here. Nothing is detailed. Everything is high level. There are lots of information, but project may be large even, but all of these can be accommodated in a page or couple of pages. So that's why the saying is one page, we say. So it's a quite crisp document, right? Yeah. That's the size of charter. In the meantime, there's a question in the chat. What is the stakeholder versus sponsor? Maybe somebody is asking what is the difference. In fact, that would be better addressed in the next topic in this chapter itself. But a quick one, I'll tell you. Quick answer for now, detailed answer later. So when I say stakeholder, in my project, there'll be 50 stakeholders, 50. 50 is just an example, could be 80, could be 30 also. And sponsor is one of the many stakeholders. This is the quick answer. So if you wanted to equate sponsor to stakeholders, no, I would not agree. Sponsor is one of the many stakeholders. Who are others? My team is stakeholder, who is not sponsor. The end user of the product is stakeholder, but he's not sponsor. They are not sponsors rather. Yeah, and there are 48 others. More elaborate answer I'll give you later. Okay, that's for now. Well, we saw the contents of charter. Then moving on. So we understood, I'll repeat. When is the charter created? Right at the beginning of the project. First thing, what is contained we understood. We understood who prepares and who approves. I didn't tell you the purpose of charter. Let me give you the purpose of charter as in PMBOK, the right terms. Purpose of project charter, I would say charter authorized project in the organization. Get this right. Charter authorizes the project. Charter authorizes the project manager for the project. The two statements are related. I will explain. If somebody asks you, what is the purpose of charter? Here, let's understand that. First one, charter authorizes the project. Meaning, without a charter, project cannot commence. Cannot. So, charter authorizes the project is like answer to this question. What is the formal way to authorize a project? Answer is by preparing a project charter. Okay. And second point is related. Charter authorizes the project manager for the project. You know, the way it works, let's understand this way. For a while, let's say I'm the sponsor and you are the project manager. I'm going to be approving the charter as sponsor. Regardless of whoever created, I would approve it. And having approved, I'm going to formally issue the charter to you. And watch, when I issue the charter to you, it kind of means I empower you as the project manager. So PM is empowered. That's what it means, the second point. In other words, without a charter issued to you, you have no right to spend any organizational resource to conduct any work in the project. So only when a charter is issued to the PM can the PM formally kickstart the work in the project. This is the purpose of charter. I hope you don't confuse charter purpose with business case. Do you confuse? Shouldn't. What is the purpose of business case? Business case purpose was go, no go decision making, funding approval. Understand this way. Let's say business case is approved today by the decision authority. What does that mean? Doesn't mean go start the work. No, it means the company in principle agrees to make the investment. Funding approval given. Doesn't mean go start. Then after the business case is approved, then a charter would be created and formally issued to a PM. And when that happens, it means the work can commence. I hope we are absolutely clear on the purpose. In case not, you can let me know. Well, so I told you everything about charter, what is contained, who prepares, who approves, and what is the purpose. And charter can, I'll also tell you this, charter can be seen as a contract between the project manager and sponsor. So when I use the word contract, not in legal sense, understand this way. Let's say I'm the sponsor, I give you the charter today. Now, when you accept the charter, remember, you kind of commit to deliver the project as per charter. So that reminds me, so the project manager should negotiate, challenge the charter if it finds something is unrealistic. Anything, let's say you find that schedule is unrealistic, for example, you should challenge it. You don't just accept, negotiate with the sponsor. You know, you accepting means what? You commit to deliver the project accordingly. So tomorrow you'll be held accountable for this delivery. So that is why PM must challenge it. Okay, so PM accepting means you commit that. Hence, I said it acts as a contract between PM and sponsor. Very well. So that would be all about charter. If anybody got a question on charter, please feel free to stop me right now. Something in chat, I'll check. Okay, question. Stakeholders can be us working in the company. Yeah, stakeholder can be anyone. All employees in the company, the support department, function, the senior management, the employees, even outside of my company, my customer, end user, regulators. Stakeholder is such a generic term. That's true. More we will talk about. Okay, there's another question in chat. Initially, character created, but later, maybe charter or charter
created,
okay.
But
Initially, charter created, but later high-level requirements changes after 8 months. So, can charter update? Okay, good question. Can charter be updated? Answer to that, yes. Charter can be updated. It's not a static document. But I must tell you something. While charter can be updated, but updates to charter is not frequent. It's not. So, charter would not be affected unless there is a major shift happening in the project. For example, what I mean, let's say you go and add one new feature to the product. Your requirement would change. Your requirement document changes, but not charter. Because in charter, watch, everything is high level. So charter would only be affected when there is a major change happening in the project. Hence, all right.
So
but yeah,
DJ schedule can be one major change, right?
Schedule is, see, you're not getting the point. My charter schedule is plus or minus 2 months. Plus 10 months, plus or minus 2 months, plus or minus. This is the timeline. So that's what I said. 2 days, 5 days added doesn't impact the charter. Now, tomorrow there is a massive change happening. So then only the schedule will change. That is what I'm telling you. Okay. Likewise, the budget.
It will be a high level document, right? Not low level.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, obviously. Very, very high level, one pager. So that's what I said. Small changes in the project will not affect the charter. Only when there is a major shift, it would be affected. But question is, can a major shift happen in a project? Of course, yes, it can happen. So hence, yes, charter is subject to change. And if the charter were to be updated, remember, PM can update, again requires approval of the sponsor. All right, if it were to be updated. That's right. I hope I answered this question. Next question, change request. Somebody asked, what is that? Change request required.
Yeah, it is an answer to his question that if something needs to be changed.
Obviously, yes. It's a document under change control. It requires formal approval to update the charter. That's correct. Ismail has a question I'll take. How does to summary the budget without having the business case information? Hey, who said business case is not there? You're missing one thing, Ismail. So look at the sequence. You never create a charter unless business case is there. Look at the flow. Please understand. So first comes business case. Business case is created, submitted to the management. Then I'll remind you, yesterday I said business case justifies the project. So management is going to check, is there enough justification? If answer is no, then what? Then you're doing nothing, stop, no project, no charter, nothing. If the answer is yes, business case is approved here. Watch, business case approved. Do remember, in your business case, time, cost, everything is there. Then only you initiate the project, I told you. And the first thing you would do is project charter as part of initiation. So very clearly, when I'm creating the charter, business case already approved. So business case is one of the inputs to charter, very much. So I'll go back to your question, Ismail. I stopped in between because your question read as, how can you do that until business case is created? So I wanted to clarify, business case already done. It is acting as an input to charter. Let's read the rest of your question. Is business case always provided to PM so can prepare? Absolutely, the same question I answered. Absolutely. So if you go and check in the input list, business case is pretty much a major input to charter. All right. Anybody else got a question? Feel free. Any questions? So how many people create charter? Anybody created charter? Would love to hear. Yes, no.
SOW
Yes,
created.
I have done it.
Okay, some people did. Some people said SOW.
We call it project plan instead of project charter. It's just the naming.
Then what do you call project plan as? Plan is a different document. I doubt plan is charter. No, it
No,
shouldn't be.
no. We create project charter only, but the naming given in organization is project plan. It's the same thing. Just the
I
naming
really
is
doubt.
there.
I really doubt. The reason I said because we would definitely need a project plan as well in the project. So if you call charter as plan, what would be your plan then? If I may ask what your plan or charter contains.
So basically, in this document that we create, all the things that is mentioned in the charter, it is there, and also a very low level schedule is also there. So that's why it
Then it is not
becomes
charter. That's no way charter. That's a plan. So what
okay.
you create is plan. You rightly calling it as plan. So that is not charter. So maybe you don't create
So,
charter. It's okay.
so no, no, so but the plan, whatever mentioned in the project charter, is also part of that document. A high level things, all the
So
things.
listen to me. Listen to me. So which is true, very true. As for PMBOK also, PMBOK's project plan includes everything, including all this. So that means you have a plan. What you call as plan is actually project plan in PMBOK. So you don't have a document matching chart. So I repeat, see, all I'm saying is what you call as plan is actually the plan, is not charter. Charter is a different document. You may not be creating, and that's okay not to create. Yeah. Okay, I'll check out chat. Yeah, no, it's okay. A lot of people said no. Some people said create charter. Very well. Okay, fair. One last thing then, let's move on. Key roles. Let's take a look at roles that we have in a project. We have 9 minutes. I'll utilize that. Hey, take a look at this. What is the takeaway? This slide talks about PMI talent triangle. Look at this triangle. What does this triangle talk about? It talks about 3 competencies that we need in a project manager. PMI recognizes these 3 competencies required in a project manager. So that is, we are saying for any PM to be effective on the job, must have 3 competencies. They're written on the sides of the triangle you see, or they're listed here. Let's get the meaning. Nothing important as such. Just to know. 1, ways of working. What is ways of working? So ways of working means me as a PM, I should know how to manage predictive projects, agile projects, all sort of life cycle, hybrid projects. So how estimation is done in agile, how it is done in predictive. Or in other words, I shouldn't be a PM who knows how to manage predictive projects alone. I don't know agile and all. Then won't work. That is what is ways of working. Okay, having a working knowledge of all sort of life cycles. Power skills. We call these as interpersonal skills also. Skills like leadership skills, communication, negotiation, influencing, empathy, emotional intelligence. There's a long, long list. These are termed as interpersonal skills. I'm sure you would agree. A PM should have good power skills or interpersonal skills. And you need these to be able to effectively lead the team, to interact with stakeholders. Your ways of working won't help. This interpersonal skill will much help to interact with stakeholders and be leading the team. Okay, so without these, again, a PM won't be effective on the job. Third one, what's business acumen? Business acumen to mean 2 things. One, knowing the domain industry. So that is, for example, I'm managing a pharmaceutical project. So I should have an understanding of the domain, which is the pharmaceutical domain. I should know the market, the industry, what is happening, what technological advancement is going on. So I should have a fair understanding of the industry. If I don't have, I won't be able to do justice to my role. In other words, what I'm saying, let's say I have been a construction project manager all these years. Okay, I'm an expert construction project manager. But tomorrow you give me a pharmaceutical project to manage. No, I won't be able to do justice. I know project management, but I don't know the industry. I should have a fair knowledge. So business acumen to mean a second thing also. One is this, knowing the domain industry. Second is I should have an understanding of our organization's strategic goals. I should know. company strategy goals. And why? So that I align my project to the organization's strategy goals. If I'm not aware, I won't be able to strategic alignment. Every project should be aligned to the strategy goals, right? So that's business outcome. So I summarize once again. So this slide only talks about this talent triangle. We simply list 3 competencies that we need in a project manager to be effective on the job. Hope you understand. If you got a question, let me know. Okay, one last thing for the day. So other than project manager, there'll be key roles in a project. Take a look. These are certain other key roles that we would have in any kind of project. Project manager, what does it do? Lead the team. I'm sure you understand. And the responsibilities would include what? Coordinate tasks, manage scope, manage budget, and other things also not written. And what does a sponsor do? We spoke about sponsor, right? So sponsor provides strategic direction. I told you in one word, providing overall direction is what the sponsor does, right? And if you talk about responsibilities, I spoke securing funds, resolving issues that the PM escalates, escalations from the PM and all, it would escalate. There are many things it does, but yeah, high level, these are the responsibilities. There may be a customer. Hope you understand. Project could be internal to the company or for an external customer, right? Yeah, both kind of projects are there. Not always is a project for an external client. There are internal projects also. Yeah, but there could be, definitely. So if there's a customer, what about this customer? What does it do? It receives value. The project provides value, benefits. Who does it go to? To the customer, isn't it? The product, service, the value it provides. And responsibilities would include what? Customer would provide feedback on the deliverables, isn't it? They would approve the work, they'll sign off, take acceptance, approve the deliverables. That's what a customer does. Now, here's a role, but this is in case of Agile. If in a non-Agile, we don't have this role. If we are adopting Agile, there's a role known as product owner. You see a high-level view here. In the subsequent slides, I'll speak a lot more about product owner later. But a high-level view, this guy represents the stakeholders' interest. In fact, product owner would be responsible for requirement gathering, right? In simple language. So this product owner would understand the needs of the various stakeholders, and basis that it defines requirements and all. Okay. So here the responsibilities owns, prioritizes. You see a term backlog. I speak a lot about backlog. One liner, let me give you for now. In an agile environment, we have an artifact known as product backlog. Okay. Product backlog, we call it. And what does the product backlog contain? It contains the list of features that we need to build. In simple language, you read product backlog as the requirement document. It spells out all requirements, all features that we want is there in the backlog. I'll tell you much more about backlog later. So product owner's responsibility would be this requirements definition that is creating the backlog. Yeah. And there's a team, the project team. When I say team, I mean technical guys who build the product. Okay. Let's say we're building a software. So I need developers, testers, architects, designers. Them I'm calling as team. And what the team does, they execute task. Yeah. That's pretty straight. You would understand. They design, build, test, the deliverables and all. So this is a high level view of roles in a project. I will wind up for the day here. Any questions before we wind up? To let me know. Any questions?
DJ, where does the delivery managers stand in the
not recognized? Nobody in a project. Delivery manager is a role I know in many organizations they would play some role, but that's not recognized as a project role. Okay. Not recognized.
Maybe named as a part of delivery team.
No, they won't be. See, I don't know your definition of delivery manager in your organization, but generally speaking, I've seen the role in many companies. They're senior people. They won't be a part of the team. They won't execute tasks. Delivery managers are very senior people who take on multiple projects would be in their purview. If I understand the role, the same is in your case. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other question? All good. All right, let me not hold you. By the way, I'm there for a few minutes if somebody has a question. But if you don't have one, you can drop off. So thank you so much. Have a great week ahead. See you next class, next Saturday, same time, same joining link, please. Right? Yeah.
Thank you. DJ, I have a generic question regarding
Yes.
the templates and the dashboards. What all are being used by PMs? So, are we going to talk about them as well?
PMBOK doesn't talk about dashboards or templates. PMBOK talks
Okay,
about
not dashboard,
major
but templates.
artifacts, no
Artifacts,
templates.
yes.
Yeah, artifacts, yes, please understand. So PMBOK doesn't provide any templates, but PMBOK talks about 50 artifacts, 50 I said. And we will discuss all artifacts, like we discussed business case, like we discussed
Mhm.
charter. These are a couple of artifacts. We'll see many more. So will we discuss? Yes, you see, I won't call it as a template, but this is the content of charter. We did discuss. Hey, that reminds me. I'll show you samples if you want. For some major documents, okay, today time is gone. I'll show you a sample charter. I'll show you a sample business case. I will do that. That's what we do. But PMBOK doesn't provide any templates.
Got it.
This is just a request, not a question as such.
Yeah, please.
In the last meeting we discussed, you had shown us few our applications, right? That you were supposed to upload on Drive.
Oh yeah, that's not given, nah? Oh, thanks
No,
for
that is
reminding. Thanks, I'm
can you
uploading
please,
it here right away.
sure.
I'm
With that,
uploading
can you
right away.
please also upload 8th edition of PMBOK for our reference? That will also be helpful.
Just a moment. I just